Can you hear me?
How does Zoom work again? The
Rookie
hell?
move.
Oh my God.
Oh,
God.
I was hoping to see your new mic. Oh. Oh my gosh. That
Here
is
you
an
go.
expert setup.
See, I'm not, well, it's just the way my desk is. My monitor and my desk, it's like I can't.
There's
I've got a
no
big-
good.
Yeah, so I have to do the above. I can't be cool like you and make it look like I'm talking into a mic.
No, it's all good. It's kind of magical that way.
Yeah,
TBH.
I like magic.
You
So
know,
what's up? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Love all that Star Wars comic. Oh my God, it's Princess
I
Leia.
I just got that.
Saw
I
your
just got
post on
that. I don't know what the grade. I don't know what it would come out to. I think I might have overpaid, but I bought it locally. I bought it at a local shop.
Sure.
I mean, so I didn't mind. And I was impatient because I didn't want to wait on the bids. There were a few
Yes.
auctions.
Yes.
Didn't want to wait. Saw it. Just had to get it.
How much did you pay for it? I'll tell you if you overpaid. Or
Like 145.
not. You're fine.
I mean, it was in the range, but I guess what I'm not good at is buying based on the condition, and I
Sure.
don't know how to really grade comic books yet, but I don't know. It's all good. How have you been?
Busy.
Mm-hmm.
Very busy. So I forgot to ask. Are we just audio or are we recording video too?
We're recording video and
Okay.
live streaming on Twitch.
Okay.
So
Oh, I didn't know I'd be live stream. Oh no. I should have fixed my hair a little bit better. Oh my God.
Oh shoot. Okay, I should have warned you.
No, that's
Surprise.
awesome. I don't I'm sure you said that or maybe you didn't.
You know what? I don't think I did.
You
That's
didn't.
on me. That's on me.
all right.
I figured out a few days ago how to get a workflow going where
Nice.
I could do that because I've seen people do it all the time, and I'm like, how do I get the two side by side and then the Twitch? Yeah.
Sweet. So all right, so we're gonna be live streaming on Twitch and where else? Just there?
And YouTube, actually.
And YouTube.
Yeah, I
Nice.
forgot about
Okay.
that.
All right. Well, I will bring my A game then. Sorry,
Aw,
I
you
thought
always bring it.
this was gonna be a snoozer, not a snoozer. I thought I could just coast on audio here, but no.
Well, for what it's worth, A, your Star Wars shirt is awesome. B, I've
Thank
been
you,
meaning to
thank you.
tell you that I've always loved your backdrop,
Thank you.
and I've been wanting to kind of do something like that to my setup, honestly, because I think it's really cool. Is that just a sheet, or is that...
Well, those are astute eyes, because it fools everyone at work. They're like, "Oh my God, where are you? Oh my God, are you in like a loft in the city?"
So fancy.
Yeah, it's a photo backdrop. I'll send you the link I got on Amazon. And what's really hilarious is like, oh my God, everyone thinks it's real, and then I do that and totally break the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you see it, it's like, oh my God, that looks so fake. But you don't.
Okay.
At first, you see it as real until you know it's fake. Then you're like, yeah, that's definitely not real. So,
Well, I mean, even when you did the thing, it still looks good. I don't know.
yeah, it's what's thinks about it is when I had this in my office in the basement, I had it like right up against a drywall.
Uh-huh.
So I was hanging pictures from it. So
okay.
that kind of made the illusion even more real, but there's a window right here. So this isn't firm against the wall.
Are
So I
we in
can't,
the basement?
no, I'm upstairs now.
Okay.
So I can't hang anything against it now. So
I
because
guess
it's just
you
kind of
have a
floating
window.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I really like it. I've always liked it.
Alright.
It was always really cool. You'd always hop on a
Well,
Zoom
thank you.
and
I
just be
appreciate
like,
that.
fancy.
I try to be fancy.
Well, anyways, whenever you're ready to get started, I am.
Oh, I thought we started already.
Just kidding. Well, I guess what we could first start off with, other than the early banter, is I guess just tell us about you, Jason. This is Jason, and he is so cool. So tell me a little bit more about you and Certified Comics.
This is Jason and I'm so cool. Are we doing this does this count or are you practicing?
No, this counts.
Oh, that counts. Okay, because I did that, can you do it again? Can you give me a little more energy?
Oh, okay, of course. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so this is Jason,
Hey, everybody.
and he is the comic book
I'm
expert.
Well, hold on now. let's not go that far. Anyway, hi, Jess. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Funny story. I thought we were just doing audio and we're just getting on our little cameras here so we could see each other while we chatted. Now it turns out we're broadcasting this live across the internet.
Across the whole world.
It's a good thing I've never met a camera that I don't like, because a lesser person would be freaked out right now, man.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry. I just had to get that off my chest. So Jason, Certified Comic Shop, we've known each other for a while now because we've known each other in our normal lives, but we'll just keep those secret identities safe for now and just talk about what we're doing right now. Anyway, so about, it'll be 4 years ago this March that I found myself in the throes of a midlife crisis. Back then I was 43, now I'm 47. But I was at this point in my life where, I'm married, I have a great career, I've got 4 awesome children, actually only 3 at the time, now I have 4. And I just found myself thinking, is this it? And not like, is this it? I mean, because this is like this awesome life, right? 100%. But I'm darn near 50 years old, and I'm like, this is just how I'm going to, live out the rest of my life, is working, for my job and just doing my thing. And that's great, and raising my family, and that's awesome. But I wanted more. So like, I'm sure you too, Jess, when you were growing up, you had like these dreams of a thing that you thought you would be. And I had 3 very distinct dreams as a kid that I thought I was going to be. First dream was I was going to be a professional baseball player. I started playing baseball when I was 6 years old. I was pretty good at it. I was left-handed, or still am left-handed, didn't change. Pitched, played first base, could hit the ball, could run the bases, all that jazz. I was convinced that I was on the track to baseball stardom. Now, I wasn't a stupid teenager. I understood that the odds of that panning out were pretty low. And even though I was confident in myself, I should probably have a plan B, a dream B, if you will. So dream A is baseball. Dream B, if that doesn't work out, I'm just going to be a rock and roll star.
Guitar in the back.
Started playing bass guitar when I was 13 years old. And, really got into that, was in some bands in high school that we got paid to play places in high school, being paid to gig, which was just awesome. So I'm like, baseball number 1, and then that doesn't work out, no problem. Then we'll just turn into rock and roll star. That'll be dream number 2. Dream number 3, which was just kind of off there, was, man, wouldn't it be cool to own a comic book shop? So that was dream number 3 as a kid. And what's funny is if I asked you, Jessica, which one of these is the most realistic? Being a professional baseball player, being a rock and roll star, or owning a comic shop? Which one of those could the average person probably achieve?
Probably the comic book shop, right?
Exactly, right, because that's what makes sense. But to me, that dream was just so far-fetched. It's like I was so distanced from it. But we would talk about it as young kids, it'd be like, how cool it would be if we had our own comic shop and we'd have all the comics and all these things. And it was just this wonderful thing, but it always just seemed not realistic. So as a 43-year-old, as I'm trying to figure out, it's like, what am I actually going to do with myself? Is this what I'm going to do? Am I just going to ride out the career for the next 20 years and retire? Or do you want to try to be something else that there is? Mm-hmm. And I'd been thinking about comics ever since really, after the Marvel movies came out, is where I kind of circled back to comics, because I've been collecting comics on and on my whole life. I got my first comic book when I was 6 years old, and that was kind of the scene that set me on my forward trajectory. And with a lot of hobbies, you put it down and pick it back up over the years. So there was times in when I started playing baseball in my teenage years and whatnot, that I was more interested in sports, music, and girls and other things like that, typical teenage boy stuff. And comic books weren't good for my look. So, you put the comic books aside.
You got to keep up appearances.
Exactly. So then you'd pick them back up again in college, and then put them back down to pick them up. Anyway, so it was after the Marvel movies really started coming out, and I was just totally into those. I'm like, man, I wonder if I have any comics still in my collection that are worth anything, because I've just been lugging them around for the past, however many years. And, like any good collector, I had a pretty good idea what I had, but there's always comics you're going to have in your collection. And that's really when I discovered, around 2012 or so, right around when Guardians of the Galaxy, the movie, was getting ready to come out. I had a few of those issues that I bought back in 2008. And I just went to check on eBay just to see what some of these might be selling for. And I'm like, holy crap. These movies are affecting the market prices for these comics. And so that made me start to think, I'm like, well, geez. And of course, like a genius, this is, genius boy thinking here. I'm like, if you just know what movies are coming out and you can have the key issues related to those movies where the characters in are going to be in them, and you just, get them ahead of time so you can get them cheaper, wait for the market to spike, a year or two down the road, then you can sell them and then you can make money and you can just keep on rolling this snowball down that hill. Oh my God, you could make a lot of money that way. So that was like my kind of initial thought of wanting to get into that thing, because I took those couple issues of Guardians of the Galaxy that I had that I paid $4 for at the comic shop back in 2008. And I sold them, for like, 10 times as much as what I paid. So it's like that kind of like income. It's like, oh, I just need a lot of that. I just need to replicate that over and over and over and over again.
It's
right?
A formula.
Exactly. That sounds easy. And that's when I realized that isn't as easy as it sounds. And that I wasn't the only quote unquote genius who thought of that. There was actually a million geniuses who were already doing that long before I ever got into thinking about that. But it did kind of set me on path. Like, well, no, comic books, that was a legitimate dream. That is something I want to do. That is something I'm passionate about. I still had, 15 long boxes of comics that I've been lugging around with me forever. I still had comics that I bought from when I was like, 8 or 9 years old. So I have these things that I want to do it. So that's when I'm like, I want to turn it into a legit business. I want it to be more than a side hustle. But I also have to set some rules around that, because I'm sure you have too, or maybe you haven't. I'm older than you. I forget that sometimes. I've seen too many people that I know be like, I am going to start this business. They proclaim boldly, and they take out a loan, they mortgage their house, they do whatever. And then 2 years later, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Once again, having a family and 4 kids and people who rely on me to, provide a living for our family, I couldn't do that.
Right.
So it's like nights, evenings, and weekends. And so, my rules were pretty simple. Family comes first, day job comes second. Don't go into debt to run this venture. Don't take out loans, don't max out credit cards, and always be true to the business. So that's really what I started to do. I started to sell off like these comics that I had in order to start bootstrapping myself. I didn't want to just be like an eBay seller. I didn't just want to be a guy hustling on Facebook groups and Instagram, although I do those things. I didn't want that to be I wanted to have a website. I needed to have a foundation, and I wanted to build a brand of the Certified Comic Shop. So people understood that this is a high touch, high quality, reputable online shop that they can go to. And that was my focus, was to sell graded comics only. I wasn't going to deal in new comics. I wasn't going to deal in back issues. There's just too much going on there. But with the graded comic scene, you can actually control your inventory. Your prices are a little more fixed. Sure, it takes a little bit of a longer time to acquire graded inventory if you're starting with just like raw comics and you send them out to be graded, and you got to wait and you got to do all these other things. But at the same time, you also don't have customers saying that wasn't near mint. That was near mint minus. How dare you, sir? Give me my money back, right?
That was a 9, not a 9.2. $50.
No, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure you've been there yourself. So that just gave me a little bit more flexibility there, and really just started building up, the shop. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but if you search on Google for like graded comics for sale, or graded comics, or just graded comics, or comic books for sale, you will find the Certified Comic Shop within the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth organic result for those searches. And so on one hand, it's like super cool that I've been, over the past 4 years, been able to build this up from nothing, bootstrap myself the whole way. Also, again, on my quote unquote spare time, which, when you have a demanding day job, and when you have demanding 4 children, and you have a wife, and you have everything else, the spare time, maybe 20 hours a week tops.
Oh man, if you're lucky.
Tops. That'd be like 3 hours a day, right?
Yeah, that's so much time to put into a project. You're like sleeping 6 hours a night, maybe?
Yep, maybe.
Gosh.
So, the Certified Comic Shop. Oh my God. What was the question again? Yes, that's how it started. It started when I was 6, and it just ended right now after I got done rambling my entire life story. But we did it.
It was a great one. And, I wanted to ask you, because you started at 6, and that just like, what was the comic that you got when you were 6 years old?
I couldn't tell you the comic, but what I can tell you was it was a stack of comics, and it's a sad story. I was sick. I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't home from school. Now, today, like when one of my kids has to stay home from school, they got their computers, they got their tablets, they got Netflix, they got all that jazz. When I was 6 years old in 1979,
back in my day,
we had broadcast TV and nothing good. So as a kid, when you were my age and you were homesick, you tried to make it until 11 a.m. without losing your mind. Because if you could make it till 11, that's when The Price is Right came on. And for a kid, that was okay. The Price is Right was entertaining. But after that, then you were screwed until, like 1:30, 2 o'clock. And maybe some reruns of Andy Griffith's show you could stomach. Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh.
until cartoons came on. So I must have been miserable. And my dad came home from work early one day, probably just totally annoyed with me being so complaining and whiny, and threw a stack of comics at me. He said, "Here you go, read these."
Take it in.
And it really was. Now, as a 6-year-old, first kindergarten, first grade, whatever it was, I couldn't necessarily read all the words in those word balloons. And I didn't necessarily even like to read all those words in those word balloons. But what I could do is I could look at those pictures and I could really pick up the story that was going on. So there's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6, I'm just guessing. If you ask my mom about this story, by the way, she'll tell you that she doesn't remember any of this and she thinks I just make this all up.
What?
I'm like, I'm telling you, this really happened, Mom. Not a figment of my imagination. And my dad passed away many years ago, so he can't corroborate the story, but this is how it happened. And he had them in a plain paper bag that you would get like at the newsstand, right? And so I carried and even then as a 6-year-old, even though I didn't realize that I was going to be a collector for the rest of my life, I was collecting them because every time I'd look at those comics, I'd put them all right back in that paper bag.
Ooh.
That paper bag, and I put it on the little shelf in my room, and that's where they stayed. So I was already, even at that age, like innately into like, these need to stay together, they need to stay organized, and nobody better touch them except for me. And when they're not, when I'm not looking at them, they're in this bag and they're on this shelf.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, you had the instinct as a kid. You grew up just, right away.
Just grew up a psychopath. Yep, start them early.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's been really cool because I think I've watched your business grow for about 3 years now. 2.5, maybe 3 years now. And it's been really, really awesome because you're right. You put in so much damn work. Your organic game is strong. Like, you're right. I did a search for graded comics. Boom, certified comic shop. What? That's amazing. That's so awesome. So I definitely can appreciate the grind. And I'm kind of curious, based on the conversations that we have, did you start consignment first or did you do content and then consignment?
That is a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. Yeah. So when I first started the shop, the first thing I did, like I said, I started selling my collection so I can get money to start building my website. Knew I had to have that foundation, right? So as I was building my website, obviously, as you know, you got to have really great content to get search engines and people to want to come and visit your site. And so I was just like, that's all I could do. I didn't have a whole lot to sell. I started with my, like I said, I was focused on graded comics. So I had to sell comics to get money so I could afford grading for my other comics that I wanted to send out for grading. So in the meantime, while I'm doing all this, I've got nothing better to do than to create content, right? So I start blogging and I start blogging. And really that's where I started to gain my organic traffic. And then obviously as the traffic comes, so do the sales. And again, that snowball, right? It keeps rolling. Every time I sell something and I make a few bucks, that gets reinvested into, acquiring more inventory, going through that whole process again, just trying to keep it all moving forward.
Right.
I got to a point after about, how long have I been doing consignment now? Just over a year. So I got to a point after a couple of years where it's like I needed more income streams because I wasn't willing to go into debt. To like, Jessica, if you've seen some of the comic collections I've passed on buying that I know I could have made money on, but I just couldn't bring myself to break that rule of not going into debt. You're like, it's like, so if I'm not going to do that, then I have to find additional income streams.
Right. You got to
And
figure it out.
so, one of the things that came to me was like, well, consignments. Okay, why would anybody? And my first thought was, well, why would anybody even want to do that? Why would you pay somebody else to sell your stuff? And I'm like, well, I wouldn't, but I know people will. And I realized I did a little research, and just about every major online comic shop or auction house, it has some kind of consignment services. I'm like, okay. So, all right. So it seems like there's a business here. Okay. Now how do I make my brand stand out? Right. When somebody has heard of my comic shop, or somebody has heard of, these other places that do consignments, if they haven't heard of Certified Comic Shop, why are they going to choose me?
Right.
Well, luckily, my commission fee is dirt cheap. That's why. And that's really actually the majority of my consignments that I started to get at first were from people I was already connected with on Instagram.
Right.
Instagram is where I spend like 99% of my social media time. I just love it over there. A lot of the BS that happens on all the other social networks just isn't on Instagram, at least in the comic community. So that's awesome. And so, I just put it out there. I'm like, hey, launching a new service, now doing consignment, half the fees that you would pay on eBay, that kind of thing. So I just made it like cheap. And for me, it wasn't necessarily at first about making money. The other part of it was keeping the virtual shelves stocked.
Right.
Again, because the shop was getting to a point where everything that I was getting back of my own stock from my own inventory from CGC was selling so fast that I couldn't keep the cycle matched up. Mm-hmm. So I'd have this huge shipment come in, 20 comics, let's say. It's gone in 10 days. And I still got 20 more at CGC that aren't going to be done for another week and a half.
Right.
And now I got to wait for those to come back. So that was the other part of it too, is not only do I get another income stream, but then also how do I like keep the shelf stocked? Because if there's this great new card shop or game shop or comic shop, and you go check it out and you go in there and it's like, where's all the stuff?
Right.
Where's the things that you promised on your big fancy sign?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not there, they're never going to come back. So that was kind of like this really anxiety laden mindset I had once the shop got like churning, that I just wouldn't have enough to keep the shelves full, and then that people were going to think that the Certified Comic Shop was stupid. So consignments is really just supposed to be a second income stream, just a way to keep the shelves full. But it turned into more than half of my business. It literally exploded, bigger than I ever anticipated. Like I said, it started with just people I was already connected to. We're like, yeah, sure, you know what? I want to try that out. But I've got a couple clients now who one has sent me over 200 comics. Another one has sent me 100 with about 200 more to go that I've made some relationships with. And so there is a lot of private collectors out there who do look for that white glove service. They've got a lot of books. They have very little time, and they're more than happy to pay me or somebody to make them go away so they can make a few bucks. So that's really cool.
I really like your business model because it was an organic thing. So your product that you offer and you've been able to benefit from your product is your organic search, right? So having quantity of users coming to your website, being able to buy things at right prices, obviously, if stuff is flying off the shelves for you, bringing on consignment business is like that natural organic flow of the growth of your business. And on top of that, you've created like the flywheel effect, kind of like Amazon. So you had the right prices and you had product, and then now you have the service of consignment, which brings people back to your website, where now you're able to increase the user base, increase your monthly, your monthly visits per month, which also could lead to more sales. And so it's just that flywheel effect where over time you're just going to grow and grow and grow as long as you stay within that realm and just don't mess up the wheel. Don't break it. So
as long as I have things to sell, that will continue to work. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think the other thing too, like what you were saying, you're, other than the fact that you are so knowledgeable, you're willing to put in time. What I think you said on your website, like every 30 or so days, if something hasn't sold, you're going to go back and revisit the pricing, revisit the market, kind of get a feel for what's going on. And you keep in touch with your customers for those things, because they may want to sell something really quick and they might be a little disappointed if you can't. for whatever reason, market or pricing, whatever that is. So, with all that work and that time that you put into, so all that work and time that you put into your business, I mean, it's going to just naturally, grow by itself. And then on top of that, you can just, I don't know. The auctioneering thing, I think that is a really, really huge, like your pricing, your consignment rate. I just talked to some auctioneer guys that do a whole bunch in Pokemon and sports cards. Like, we're talking upwards of 35% sometimes, depending on who you go with. They don't do 35, but sometimes, a lot of the times it's what it is. So like what Amazon did, they sold stuff really cheap and it brought people back onto the platform. And then it also brought sellers to the platform because people were on the platform. It's like, okay, if you get girls to the club, you can get guys to the club because girls are there. So I don't know.
It's basic math, right?
It's basic math, and it just makes, it just makes total sense. And you're not trying to, push like a camel through a needle head, that phrase, however it is. So
push a camel through a eye of a
something very small.
Something. We'll Google it later, and we'll be like, oh my God, we weren't even close.
Yeah, but I really like that, and I kind of like, for my own pursuits, I've always used your ecosystem, because that's what you're doing, is you're building an ecosystem, organically, like obviously through SEO, but also through, word of mouth and just in general your content. So I really like how your ecosystem works.
Well, thank you.
The flywheel. Yeah. I've always told you that, but yeah.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think it goes back to this, and it's something I learned, I don't know. I'm not going to say it was a long time ago, but it was like 7 or 8 years ago. And that if you're going to do anything, is you have to have a mission statement, if you will, that you check yourself against. And, without getting onto a long, boring sidetrack about how to craft a mission statement, step one. No. The mission of the Certified Comic Shop is to help comic book collectors collect the comics they love. Mm-hmm. Help comic book collectors collect the comics they love. So that's my mission statement. You'll see my mission statement is Jason wants to make money and take his family on a vacation to Disney World after this whole COVID thing goes away. No, that's not my mission, right? My mission is to help comic book collectors collect the comics they love. And because of that, it's like, when you've been in the comic book fandom, sometimes you go into a comic book shop and you realize that you are in usually it's a dude, some dude's shop who just sees everything as his and is priced to not necessarily sell unless it's at some stupid, ridiculous price.
Right.
We also see now this happens a lot, which always gets the hackles up of the LCS going community, is when comic shop proprietors, they don't price their back issues that they have, dozens and dozens and dozens of long boxes of. They don't price them. And then when somebody wants to buy them and they bring them up to check out, they look up the most recent selling prices on eBay and then charge them
at the register.
At the register, and then charge them the highest price that they find on eBay. So when it comes to pricing, there's a lot of, in the comic book world, sometimes there's some shenanigans. I always strive to have fair market prices. I use a couple tools out there in the comic book land. GP Analysis is one of them. GPanalysis.com. GoCollect.com is another one. But anyway, they track actual graded sales of graded comic books, not just from eBay, but from other verified e-commerce outlets as well. Mm-hmm. So you can get, your most recent sales, you get your 90-day averages, your 12-month averages, your, year-by-year averages all the way back to 2012 or even before that. So you get this really nice look at just where the market is. And so I always price obviously within that, that 90-day or 12-month range, depending on what the volume is. Because again, I want people to realize, just like you're saying, when they come there and buy something, they feel like that this is a good price or a fair price, right? Especially when you go look on what the same thing might be going for over on eBay. And I think that strategy has worked, much like you said, like Amazon. They lose money on every single Kindle they sell. They lose money on every single Echo they sell. And it's not about, making money off that product. It's about getting them into the Amazon ecosystem. My kids, my God, they've got Echo Dots. They got kids' Fire tablets. I mean, they won my kids over, right? They're going to be Amazon kids. Well, at least until they're old enough to get an iPhone, and then, but for now, they're Amazon kids, right? Yeah. My oldest is 9, and she's constantly like, "Can I go on Amazon and shop?" No. Just look with your eyes. No clicking buttons.
Oh,
look
man.
With your eyes.
Taking that credit card off that account real quick.
Yeah. No. Yeah. We got to change it. We got to put passwords on stuff, man. That's crazy.
Oh, man. Oh, well, what I like too, because of the fact that everything is online for you, you have an extra advantage compared to the LCS, is because I feel like because of the fact it's a brick and mortar, whether or not they are, making their pricing out of greed or out of the fact that they have more overhead, they do have just a little bit more of a premium, and you know that, but you do not. So it's even more fair market, in my opinion, just because of that. Your overhead is so low compared to having a brick and mortar.
It is. But at the same time, so that's a very fair point that you'd make. You'd say, oh, you know what they do? They got to pay the rent. They got to pay the utilities. They've probably got a couple of employees, maybe more, that they have to pay. So they do need to maximize the profit per sale. However, my counter to that would be, what would you rather have? Would you rather have $200 today or $250 4 weeks from now?
Well, I'm sometimes impatient. But yeah, I want to say 250.
Okay, so you could, but if you could take that $200 today, reinvest it, you can probably make more than $50 off that $200 than you could just by waiting for that $250. So in terms of a cash flow mindset, that's always been my mindset. It's like, yes, could I hold out for an extra $15 here, an extra $20 there, an extra $30 there? Yes, but I don't have the luxury of waiting. I need the cash flow coming in because I need to reinvest it to keep the shelves stocked. And I think I would have that same approach, when I talk about, people ask me, is like, so what is your goal for a shop? I'm like, well, when I had a dream as a 10-year-old kid about owning a comic shop, there was no internet. So I owned a brick and mortar comic shop. That was the dream. Right. I didn't dream about wouldn't it be cool if on my Commodore 64 I could buy a comic book? No. So that is still the dream. The dream is to have a brick and mortar shop. And when I say that, people usually say, Jason, you're stupid. That's just a losing ball game. But I don't know if it's ego, probably a little bit. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but your ego, like the thing that's inside your head, right, tells you that you can do things and that you're special, right? Tells me that I can do that. Because it wouldn't just be the shop. It would be the online presence that we've built and the shop. And really, when I think about what I'm trying to build with the Certified Comic Shop, the online entity is really similar to what you would get when you go to a Comic-Con. So typically when there's that key you just got to have, sure, you might hit the couple shops that are within, 20 half-hour drive from you. Maybe you'll go out even a little bit further, just down, just to see if they got it, right? But if there's really one you want, and you want a selection, and you don't want to buy it online, you're going to go to the local con. Well, there are no local cons right now. Right. But at the same time, even when there were, it's like, I want the Certified Comic Shop to have that feel that when there's that key that you want, you just come here and they're going to have it. You don't have to wait 6 months for the Motor City Comic Con to roll around, or 6 months later for the Great Lakes Comic Con to roll around, or you don't have to drive to, C2E2 6 hours away, and spend a bunch of money to go do that. Right. So that's kind of the thing. And it's really what I call, I know you guys got one out there in Chicago, but I don't know if you heard of it. You ever hear of Micro Center before?
That sounds familiar. It sounds like a computer place.
It is a computer place. It is a giant computer place.
It's like a Fry's, right?
Yes, similar to a Fry's, absolutely. Micro Center, for me as a computer geek, I was also a computer geek for a while there. When you needed that part, your choices were ordered online or ordered online. But Micro Center came around and you could go and buy these obscure computer parts, like 30,000 different SKUs, man, where you could buy that one unique stick of RAM you needed, or that CPU or that motherboard, things you couldn't get at Best Buy, things you couldn't get anywhere else. You would go to Micro Center and you would get it today. You didn't have to wait, for Tiger Direct to finally ship it over to your place. And so really, I just want that kind of feel for the brick and mortar shop to be like, you know what? I want to, some crazy key. I want a Hulk 181 certified comic shop. Come on over. We've got it. So the original plan was after 5 years was to have a brick and mortar comic book shop. That's a lot closer. 5 years ago, that sounded like a long time. Or a year plus away from that. And honestly, I don't know if that's realistic or not. Not trying to, pursue my own goals, but it's still a goal. It's still something I want to do. It's still something I think I can do and really have the best of both worlds. 5 years of a legitimate online presence that's been churning and generating income, then combine that with a physical location that people can walk into and buy stuff daily. I think that marry those two together, and that's where it all comes together.
That's what Amazon is trying to do right now with those walk-in shops. So I think you still have something there. Maybe 5 years is too soon, but I mean, life works on a pendulum. So once COVID is, hopefully over, once we get to that point where we can go back to, that normal that we had, I mean, it's going to swing the other way. People are going to want to go out. They're going to want to see physical locations. I mean, I'm pretty sure people will really enjoy like the Comic-Con experience because that is always fun. And I remember you saying one time online that you didn't just want the traditional LCS feel. And I think the Comic-Con feel is just a whole lot different. It's social in a different kind of way. I mean, shoot, you might even have people just cosplaying in the shop. Who knows? I mean, that'll just be fun because then people are taking pictures and looking at comics and having fun. But I really like how you want to make it different because people do love experiences. And right now it's hard to get that experience, but when the time is right for you and wherever we are economically at that point in time, I think it could work.
Yeah, I think so too. And really my goal with that is I just want a shop to be, comic shops can be sometimes maybe not be the most welcoming place in the world. Even if you are an avid collector, I've walked into plenty of shops where it's like, one look, nope, don't recognize you. And it's just like either A, they're just staring at you uncomfortably, or B, they're ignoring you.
Right.
And me, I'm a chatty sort. So I'm just going to like start talking. And that sometimes like my personality to like a more introverted person inside the comic shop can be a little off-putting. So that's always fun. But no, a welcoming space because look, I mean, not to get, again, existential crises here, but, the print comic book, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a dying medium. I don't think it is, but you can't ignore what DC Comics just did to what AT&T did to their property of DC Comics. They totally gutted it and neutered it. And, allegedly the whole comic book side of the AT&T ginormous mega corporation makes up less than 1% of their total revenue. So it's not like this big thing for them, right? And so they totally gutted it. And obviously digital it has been here for a while now. And then just, my own kids, for crying out loud, looking at kids today, they're just not picking up as much as I jam comic books in their hand. They're just not as interesting as their tablet is. So I do want to have the shop that's opening, welcome, and inviting so that when a person walks in who might be just like their kid wanted a comic book, right? And their parent comes in, and if, you walk into the wrong shop and you don't get the help you need, right, then that kid doesn't get that comic book.
Right.
Maybe. Or maybe that's just my dark dystopian version of what might happen.
Right.
So I want to really have like the best of both worlds. Now I'm going to give away an idea so nobody steal it. But if you do, more power to you. So I really want to have like this really bright, well lit, come on in, sit down, have a cup of coffee, talk about comics, help you find, this really, once again, high touch, white glove kind of experience. But I also want to have, because now here's the irony is that experience would turn off a lot of comic collectors. They like the looser, the dingier, the just kind of,
dirty shelves, dusty.
They like that. So I want to actually have within the comic shop, I want to have a reverse escape room.
Huh.
So it's a room, it's clues you have to find. And once you find them, and you find the door that lets you into the other part of the shop, which is the dirtier, more casual, all the cool shit is like in there. And that's where you just hang out and talk comics and nerd out and do those things. Whereas the front side of the store is just like, you know, it's almost like this weird, you know, it's like this weird front. Yeah, come on in, everything's great. And then back here is where all the craziness happens.
Like all the secret place.
So the way my mind works with this reverse escape room is that I don't even tell anyone it exists. I just put the clues out in the shop and wait for however long it takes for somebody to be like, hey, I wonder if this is a clue to something.
I wonder.
And then they start looking, and then they find their way to wherever this thing is, and they've managed to open up the secret, you know, door to the danger room, and ta-da! You know, this room has been untouched by human hands for 3 years because I never told anyone to look for it. That's just kind of like this little happy dream I have that I really want to make a thing.
That would be really cool. That I vote for it. So let me know when it's there. So
just don't tell anybody.
I'll try not to. We won't say anything here. Edit it out. But you do make a really interesting comment about your kids and them not really picking up comic books. Obviously, that's an anecdotal experience, but have you seen kids in general, or do you think that maybe comic books aren't doing a good enough job, or if there's anything that they can do to kind of keep kids into the hobby?
Yeah, you know, Marvel, there's a lot of things there. Oh boy, my mind just went like 18 different places at once. So the original idea for when Marvel started selling their properties to be made into movies. This is before Marvel Studios. This is before they were owned by Disney. So back when, you know, in 2000 when Fox was making X-Men, and 2003 or whatever it was when Sony was making Spider-Man movies, right? The idea is we get these big motion picture companies to make major motion pictures of our characters, and that will then drive the comic book business. So Marvel was close to going bankrupt. So A, they were getting money from licensing out these properties, but B, they also thought this would be like the savior of their print business. Well, it turns out people love the movies. Even back then. I remember in 2000 going to see that first X-Men movie. I was like, oh my God.
So much fun. Loved it.
Everything that I ever imagined. Same thing with that first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. Oh my God, this is so much amazing. You know, Ghost Rider, Nick Cage, not so much. But
yeah, I didn't see it, but
I'm sure it
was great.
Don't. No. We're going to watch it together right now. Watch along, everybody, Ghost Rider. No. And it didn't really move the needle for the comic book. And then, you know, fast forward to 2008 and Iron Man and this, that, and the other. And we get the MCU and we get, you know, these 20 some movies of awesomeness. Again, not moving the needle in terms of, now that's not to say that with kids that they're not becoming attached to these characters, because they are. They're just not looking to reconnect with those characters necessarily in print comic books. It's like my kids, for example, who do they really like? Well, Baby Yoda, but that's not a superhero. I got my 4-year-old is obsessed with Baby Yoda.
They have a Funko Pop for Baby Yoda.
They've got everything for Baby Yoda now. Oh my God. So what were we just watching? I can't even remember. Anyway, so my 9-year-old is more likely to see that character and then be like, is there like a video game that I can get on my tablet that has this character?
Is there an app? Can I do that?
Exactly. So that's the natural next step. It's like, unless there's this thing that I can read with my eyes and have to think about, but is there this thing? So I know that's, again, anecdotal, and that's very like narrowed down into just my family, but I have to imagine that that's a pretty normal, thing to do. So, so superheroes more popular than ever, but the media itself, the print media, is no. And so where I really see it going, to just try to circle back to answer your question, is it's almost to me, it feels like comic books are almost on the level that action figures are at now. Now, do you follow the action figure biz side of things too much at all?
No, not much.
It's fine. You don't need to, because I'll tell you, it's really, they're pandering to collectors now.
Yeah.
It's not about Jason as a 10-year-old kid and discovering G.I. Joes. Discovering G.I. Joes. Just had Storm Shadow lying on the desk here in 1983, right? That's not the actual 1983 Storm Shadow. This is the 25th anniversary edition. Didn't want to make anyone think that I was saying I had a 1983 mint on card Storm Shadow. So no. So yes, they are. It's all about the collector now. The price points on these things are insane. Again, 1983 Jason isn't walking into Target today to pay $20 for a Star Wars Black Series figure. He just didn't have that kind of cash.
Yeah.
Or did his mom. So these things are clearly, and they're being bought that way. It's like, G.I. Joe just launched or Hasbro just launched a new G.I. Joe classified line, which is a 6-inch line of the 83 lineup. So similar to the Star Wars Black Series in terms of scale and detail. $20 price point. And I'm in a few G.I. Joe groups on Facebook, and it's just the people who are going and clearing them out. Like the one guy who shows up at the right time, just buying them all. And Hasbro doesn't care because they charged Walmart and Target and everything else. And Target and Walmart don't care because they just sold a bunch of shit.
Made their money. I was about to ask who made those action figures, and my first thought was going to be Hasbro's, and I'm not surprised because they do some interesting things with magic. So anyways, Papa Hasbro. I think they're a publicly traded company at this point. So sure they operate on the quarterly basis. So which,
Yep. Yeah. So they just, it's all, it's all ran by algorithms these days. It's not about having the shelves stocked, because I've been to numerous Targets and Walmarts just wanting to buy one of these G.I. Joes. I can't find one anywhere because they keep getting cleared out. And again, they're not stocking. They're not like, here's all these things that there are. You just come by and buy one whenever you like. It's like, if you're not there at the right time. And then just the stories are crazy. I mean, this even goes back. My wife, before we were married, she used to work at Toys R Us. And the toy collectors would come in there for like the McFarlane, like the baseball figures, and their football guys. Todd McFarlane has these great action figure lines, right? And they could be like very belligerent. It's like, hey, you go back and check right now, and you find me more of these. Ooh.
There's some in the back. You find me some.
Yeah, and that's like back in 2006, 2007. So this is nothing new. This is nothing new. But at the same time, comics, I feel, are heading that way. There's so many different variants that come out for each issue, each and every week. There's these store exclusives now, which I got hooked on for a while. Based on kind of like this idea that, okay, here's a store exclusive, this online shop, has this cover from this hot artist. It's beautiful, and there's only 1,500 of them printed. So it's got this like built-in rarity to it. And then, you get that, you grade it, and oh my God, you're going to be rich, and it's going to be so much, you're just going to count your money. That's, that's all you'll need to do is just count it. Again, lots of people think that way. And two, it's like, when there's new variants each and every week.
I was about to say, there's like many variants.
The one that everyone was just like totally fighting over to have 2 weeks ago, they've forgotten about because there's the new one. Right. The new Clayton Crane cover that everybody has to have, or the new Art Germ cover that everybody has to have. And so, since there's no pause, the market never has time to mature for these things. So it's just like, boom, you get it. It's a flash in the pan, and then everyone's on to the next one. And so that when I talk about comics are really like being more driven for the collectors now, there's a large part of the audience that is in it for the quote unquote financial aspect of it, or the investment aspect of it versus the reading aspect of it. That's not to say those two things are mutually exclusive. When I have time, I love to read comics, but I also love to collect them as well. And so there are plenty of people who do both, but there are also plenty of people who like would never grade a comic. They think that's sacrilege, right? They call it comic coffin, right? Oh my God, you couldn't read it. And then there's people who's like, I've never read a comic in my life, but I've made a lot of money off of them,
Yeah. So, extremes.
Yeah. But I think most of us are probably right there in the middle. We do both. Yeah. We read, we collect, we make a few bucks, we start a business on it, whatever.
And then you continue on with your day.
Yeah, and it really helps support my LaCroix budget. My LaCroix habit. It's like my fourth one today. Is that, there's nothing, I said this to somebody the other day. I was in a meeting for the day job with a different company. So no one from my team. No one I've even never met before. And this is Jason and when he's locked in his office. And I'm taking a drink. It was a grapefruit LaCroix. And everyone just kind of popped up at once. I'm like, somebody asked how's it going. I'm like, I'm doing better now that I've had a drink of grapefruit LaCroix. And I just stopped instead. I'm like, could I say anything more middle-aged right now than that? Life is good now that I've had some grapefruit LaCroix.
No judgment here. I like the basic flavor. This isn't LaCroix, but the basic flavor, like no flavor, water flavor. Water. No. But I'm with you.
I thought you were saying basic flavor, like basic. I thought you were making that like a Basic cigarettes reference. Like, do you remember Basic cigarettes? The no name brand cigarettes. They're called Basics.
No, but
no, you probably weren't a smoker either, so you wouldn't know that. I haven't smoked a cigarette in 20 years, people, but I still know they exist.
I just pictured like an off-brand cigarette, I guess.
Yes, that's essentially what you're drinking. You're drinking an off-brand cigarette right now, Jessica.
That's so funny.
No, the pure, like the LaCroix version, pure. Yes, the no flavor. Yes, it's so good. So good. Wow, we just totally went into a weird place there. I'm sorry for anyone watching or listening to this.
No, it is all good. And, I'm really glad that you brought up, like, the variants, the crazy overprinting. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of the 90s, even though I was still a child to, like, really fully grasp and understand. But I have so many baseball cards that are just worth about as much as, a tile of toilet paper. Yeah. But at first when I started getting into collecting the comic books, I'm like, ooh, I like to set goals, right? I like to challenges. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I should get all the variants for something. But you're spending a fortune getting all the variants, and not all of them are great. All right. And after a while, you're so inundated with variants. Like at first I thought that the variants were the thing that were, always short print. There was always few variant like varieties in general. I mean, I remember when Stranger Things came out, I tried to get all the variants, and I think I have 4 of them for the first issue, and I'm sure there's actually more of them than that. But then I literally stopped at the first issue because I'm like, I can't continue on buying 5, 6, or 7 versions of just one comic. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty crazy. And I mean, let me know what you think about what's going on right now with the market, just because of the printing back in the 90s. And I remember you, and just to add to that, I remember you telling me that the modern comics are always a little bit more volatile. Like if you're trying to invest, they're a little bit more volatile. And I think it goes back to the crazy printing, the ton of variants, the market not being able to digest and absorb and understand like what there is, and then moving on to the next. Like there's just so many things. There's just so many things going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And sometimes I think we are like reliving the 90s boom and bust, except I don't think it's that much of a boom. But like the 90s made a lot of sense to me in terms of what happened, how it happened, and why it happened. For me at that point in time, 1991, freshman in college, just so happened one of the first people I met the day I moved into college, guys whose name was Ralph. Ralph was an artist and a comic book guy. And we struck up a quick friendship over comic books, even though I hadn't collected them in a few years, as I mentioned it. And then he was just like, one day he's like, hey, it's new comic book day. Want to go to the comic shop with me? It's just like, okay, yeah, why not? And before I know it, here I am back on the juice again, shelling out my food money.
Oh man,
to buy a stack of comics, and I got hooked, and I got hooked hard. It's funny, on my Instagram, I just posted it's Show Off Sunday on Instagram for Comic Book Land. A lot of people have been posting like their Silver Age keys, and just for a joke, I posted X-Force #1 and Dark Image #1 and Turok #1 and Robin 2 #1, the collector's set. Anyway, like just 4 of the most 90s comics you could have. Like, yeah, I'm seeing some pretty cool comics out there. First appearance Black Panther's okay, but check this out. The X-Force #1 still in the polysealed back. Anyway, follow me on Instagram at Certified Comic Shop. Anyway, so I got sucked into the variants. And it made sense in retrospect, and here's why. So 1961 is essentially the birth of Marvel Comics with Fantastic Four #1. Spider, even though there were, other things, but what we call the modern Marvel universe, right? 1963, we get Amazing Spider-Man, we get Avengers. we get all these classic titles. So now 1963. Now I was born in 1973. So that's only 10 years before. And so when I get to like college and it's 1991, 1963 doesn't seem that long ago, right? It really doesn't seem that long ago, even though it was close to 30 years. It's just still felt attainable because like as a 10-year-old, I was collecting comic books in 1983. 1963 isn't that far back. So then when you have a comic shop owner whispering in your ear when you bring up whatever that issue was, oh, you're only going to buy one of those? Should I get two? Like one to read and one to keep? He's like, yeah, I mean, sure, but like if you were going to buy Avengers #1, if you can go back in time and buy the first Avengers, this comic book that was worth at that time, $30,000, would you just buy one? Well, no, man, I'd buy as many as I could. Well, damn right you'd buy as many as you could. Now go back out there and get as many as you can. That was literally the comic shop owner, right? He was positioning these new #1s, these books from Image, these books from Valiant, right? These other comics, the new Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane from Marvel. They were being like, hey, if you could go back and buy X-Men #1, you would buy as many as you could. So that's what we did. And it wasn't just me and the people who went to my comic shop. It was everybody all across there. Because, again, we were thinking that like a book like, Hulk 181, which came out in 1975. I was 2 years old when that came out. Again, that seems like it was a very attainable book. And obviously today, if you had a stack of Hulk 181s, you would be rich. So that was kind of the thing that happened in the 90s. So we all started doing that. And so that's kind of why it feels like we're back at this today. This is why it feels cyclical, because now we're in 2020 and the 90s were 30 years ago. Just like in the 90s, the 60s were 30 years ago. So I feel like we're at that same kind of time period in terms of like the variance and the hype. And we're also seeing a lot of the same characters or versions of the same characters that were all hype in the 90s. Like in the 90s, as far as Marvel goes, it was Spider-Man, Hulk, Wolverine, and Ghost Rider. Like those were the four titles that were selling a ton of. Did I say X-Men? X-Men also, but besides the X-Men, those four that they were selling a ton of. And it would always be like this kind of a joke when like a new title like Darkhawk or Death's Head or whatever it was that came out, when you would see now also featuring Ghost Rider or teaming up with Wolverine, like on issue 5, you knew that was clearly just to drive some sales because no one gave a crap about those characters. They're like, hey, we got to get Wolverine in this book bound issue 6 because nobody's buying it. And so you start to see those same kind of core characters like kind of merge and do something a little different. So you got like, starting like 2 years ago, you had like Weapon H. What happens if you take the Hulk and you take Wolverine and you smash them together and you get Weapon H, right? And then, Cosmic Ghost Rider. And now we've got, and now we're getting Venom pumped up again. So it's like we're taking these same characters that were big in the 90s and just putting a little different spin on them. And now we're putting them in all the books. So just that like that 30-year period. And then with all the variants, again, which we already talked about, there's just every week, it's just a slew. I mean, my God, and there's just so many.
Right.
It's just
so
like,
many.
I mean, like when that Star Wars #1 came out in 2015, that was 5 years ago still. 105 different variants. I'm working with a client right now who is trying to collect 9.8s of all of them, and I'm helping them obtain them.
You said 105 variants?
Yeah, at least. There's probably more. It was over 100. So,
I knew it was bad, but I just didn't realize the zeros. Did not realize that. And so I just listened to, it might have been your most recent podcast where you talked about your story about selling that first print edition with all the signatures on it. I was like, no, oh my gosh, I would have loved to buy that. Just because like, I think, I don't know, getting like a Carrie Fisher autograph. There's no more Carrie Fisher.
I still have that. I didn't sell that. That was somebody tried to buy that.
So you ended up getting it back for
I never shipped it. I canceled the order.
It
ended up being, go listen to episode 15 of Certified Comic Talk. Look it up on iTunes and you can hear the whole story. And it's way too wordy entirety. First, I have a comic book, Star Wars #1 from 2015. the Heroes Haven variant, which is a giant size X-Men #1 cover homage, and it's signed by 7 people, including Carrie Fisher, David Prowse, Jeremy Bulloch, Boba Fett, Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? Oh no, David Prowse, Darth Vader.
C3PO.
Anyway, 4 Star Wars people, plus 3 comic artists. Anyway, it's an amazing book. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Carrie Fisher signatures, obviously, sadly.
Yeah.
I
just recently came across the tops. I don't know if you've seen these. I
saw you post that on Instagram.
I did. I realized that these existed. I had no idea these existed. Literally, these are just cards of pictures from the film.
Yes, and are those the 80s, the actual 80s, or those reprints from
1977?
77. Yes,
originals.
Yes.
And so any of these cards with Carrie Fisher's signature is going for crazy amounts, in the thousands, depending on what you get, like the sealed original booster boxes, or well, I guess I don't know what else to call it other than booster boxes, but those boxes are going for like 800 and something on eBay, which nice. I saw because I love to buy it, but
well, I will tell you, I had that very card as a kid.
Did you? Do you still have them?
No.
What happened?
Oh, like all of my things. I've got rid of them, or my mom did for me. Oh yeah, I had all the Star Wars cards. Oh my God, I love collecting those, and all the toys, and all this, and all that.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah. I understand lugging that around from every place that you move, like to each new place is tough. Moving is tough, so having a lot of baggage with you.
And our generation, your generation, we do it a lot more than our parents' generation did. It's like constantly on the move. Feels like. I feel like I've been moving my whole life, and not for like terrible reasons. Just move.
You got places to go.
You just go somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I haven't read any of those. So what's funny about me, and I think like how we talked about that spectrum and what you said is true, being in the middle, I have not really read that many comic books, but I have over 150 comic books because nice. A, I love collecting shit, and B, there are just some that I genuinely want. And most of the reason why I haven't read as many as I want to in my collection is because like if I've got a series going, I don't want to start it and then wait however many months because I'm waiting for it to show up in someone's back issues, to find it and then be able to read it. Like, so whenever I go to some of the local comic shops, I always go first to look at the sets that are complete. Because they'll have some complete sets. You can get them for $10 to $30, however much, So, like, I've picked up a few Halo complete sets because I love Halo. I grew up playing it as a kid. I prefer reading comic books than reading the books themselves. Like the extended universe of Star Wars, I've never read a single extended universe, but I've read a few comics, and like the Lost Tribe of the Sith. This goes like super way back. Yeah. And collecting like all the Republic, comics, and like the Knights of the Old Republic comics, and just Kanan, the Padawan. I can't remember if that's the exact title, but just all that cool old stuff. I'd rather read comics and enjoy those than read a book because there's less words. And I know that sounds really silly and uneducated.
That's so lazy.
I know it's so lazy. And then what to add to that is I actually I listen to books.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Oh,
I have the audio.
Okay, wait. Here's the question. Here's the question. Are you familiar with Goodreads?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So when you listen to an audiobook, do you tell Goodreads that you read it?
So I don't update that, but honestly, I would. Like if I did, I would because I'm still taking in information. I actually don't. The only fiction books I've listened to is Game of Thrones, and that is hard to follow even when you're reading it. Yeah. So you got to like listen to it a few times. But I still say I understand the plot. I know all the little minor characters. I know what's going on. I know what the TV show missed, and I don't even want to go there. But I would still consider I read it.
No, you're wrong. This goes back. My sister-in-law, and I'm going to share this because there's no way she's ever going to hear this unless I tell her to go listen to it. So yes, her and my wife are very competitive readers in terms of who reads the most books. Now, my wife has 4 kids, and she has, stay-at-home mom, and she has her own Etsy shop. Quilt shop, Cricky's Quilts on Etsy. I'm just full of self-plugs today. She makes awesome quilts and other things. Anyway, her sister, not married, no kids, doesn't plan on having any, has all the time in the world, but they're very competitive on who reads the most books.
I love that.
And so my sister-in-law, it's like, I hit my goal of 135 books read this year. And my wife's like, I read 25 and I thought I did really good. I'm like, no. Ask her how many she read and how many she listened to.
So
it's like, so how many? Okay. How many did you actually read of those 135? 7.
Oh,
no, you did not read 135 books. You read 7 books and listened to 128. Doesn't count.
Right. No, I agree with that. I think the metrics there are skewed. For sure, some skewage. So I think 25 books, even still, being a full-time mom and having her own, side hustle, like I love that. Hey, much respect for the 25 books.
I haven't read 25 books and oh my God, I have so little time to read. It also doesn't help the second I start reading anything. I'm believe it or not, this is just getting into weird territory here, but we're just conversing now. It's like I have mild narcolepsy, officially diagnosed, and not the TV kind, not the sitcom kind.
Where you're just sitting on the couch.
Where you're just like, hey, everybody, where Jason's in a meeting, for work, and he's just like with the CEO. No.
Right.
No. It's brought on by brain inactivity. So if I sit down and watch TV, if I read a book, sadly, if I pick up a comic book, I am asleep within a minute. It's just the brain just is like, and off I go. So it's really actually kind of a bummer. My wife is jealous of me many times, especially when we have babies that aren't sleeping, where I can just be like, I'm out. But yeah, no, it's like, I really want to read a comic. Like today's the perfect day. It's rainy, it's cold, it's gloomy. Kids are entertaining themselves. Let's just plop down the chair and read a comic. I will just be asleep within a minute. And it's a big bummer. So I'm always jealous and bitter of people who actually can read, not because I don't know how to read. Again, I do. It's just
educated.
My brain makes me go night night.
Oh man. So, well, I mean, have you read anything lately? Have you been able to kind of like take a second and read something lately?
So I rely a lot on other people reading for me. So here's the thing too. So one of the, I had to make this transition. Now we're circling back to what we were ostensibly gathered to talk about today. I made a conscious decision to go from comic book collector to comic book seller. I could not justify keeping any comic book that I could sell to make money on to drive this business forward. I couldn't be like, well, I'll sell any of these, but these I'm keeping. Because if I'm not willing to commit 100%, then I'm not willing to commit. Right. At the same time, I need to spend all the money that I'm taking in on things to drive the shop forward. So I didn't feel like it would be right to buy new comics on a regular basis. That felt kind of counterintuitive. Now I know Jason, I've been living with this guy for a long time now. And I knew that I also wouldn't necessarily be able to cut myself off entirely, that I had to give myself some challenge, just like how you were saying you like to collect things. Obviously I like to collect things too. I got to set myself some kind of goal just to give myself something to do that I can just kind of like add to every once in a while. So when I do have a few extra dollars where I'm like, I can spend money on something, I tend to spend it on one of those couple things that I am actively trying to build a collection on, as opposed to reading new stuff. For a while there, I did have a Marvel Unlimited subscription, so I could read all those comics online. I have a DC Universe subscription, so I could read all those comics online. And then I was a Comixology. And so they're really easy. If I feel like I want to get something new, I can do that. But I rely on other people reading comic books and then talking about them for me to keep up with what's happening. which is really a great way to do it because it doesn't cost you anything and you get to support other content creators. So like the iFanboy podcast, they've been around. They were like an OG podcast from way back in the day before everyone like us had their own podcasts. So they do a weekly review show. They've done, God, gotta be close to 800 episodes now. You know, just every week, weekly comic releases. There's 2 hosts, sometimes 3. They each read their stack of books and then they talk about them, what they liked, what they didn't like, those kind of things. Comic
That's
Tom
really
is another guy I've known for quite a while. Met him over on Instagram, and he's built like this huge business and YouTube following and whatnot. Talk about a lot of stuff there. So yeah, I just like to support other people and, you know, read a page when I can.
Oh man. I totally get that. And I didn't know that this world existed until maybe like 8 months ago. But there are some people with certain maybe like cult following comics, or like maybe comic strips even, where people that are just doing voiceover, like normal people just kind of doing voiceover of the comics, which I thought was kind of cool and interactive.
Interesting. Yeah.
I've seen it for like God, I think it might have been Legend of Korra. She's not really a comic. Well, I think she does have the comics. I have the I have the graphic novels. I don't know if you watch Legend of Korra or cartoons in general.
But I've heard of it. It's a thing that there is.
Yes. Well, I mean, I figure since you have kids, maybe you've seen Avatar, but you know.
No, I've seen Blippi. You know who Blippi is?
No.
Yeah. Go to YouTube and look up Blippi. Blippi, kids.
You know, now that I think about it, 9 is probably still a little too young for Avatar or Legend of Korra. I think I started watching Avatar when I was like in my teens. So,
there you go.
Yeah, that probably makes a little bit more sense. But what's funny now is like there are certain comic books that I'm like, ooh, I want to read that. But then because I want to read it, I also want to collect it. So my middle ground is, okay, let me try to find the comic to collect and like enjoy and look at, but then also actually enjoy the reading of it. So The Last Ronin that just came out this past Wednesday, I didn't get a copy because they were sold out. So I'm going to try to get issue number 2 on Wednesday and maybe listen to someone's commentary or try to find something on eBay for issue 1.
Yeah.
But do something like that where I, you know, because even myself, if I want to keep something super pristine, I don't even want to read it. I don't even want to touch it. I mean, you know, I'm sure like a lot of people can agree and understand with that. You don't want to put any nicks into it. You don't want no creases or anything like that. So it would honestly scare me.
Well, remember, hey, it's one to read, one to keep. You know, you gotta have one to read, one to keep. And Last Ronin, that's another one that had like 40 some odd different variants.
Wow.
The first issue that did, another huge one. So here's my pro tip, and it requires a skill that not a lot of people possess, but I think you might have it, and that's called patience. A lot of times when we have these like hot issues, Last Ronin #1 is a big issue, right? All these different variants, a lot of people talking about this, then the other, then the FOMO kicks in, right?
100%.
That's what drives them. That's what drives the market. Just if you can wait 3 months, the worst thing that's gonna happen is that you're paying the same price that you would have 3 months earlier, maybe a little bit more, but more than likely you'll be paying less.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because of this weekly cycle where there's always something hot, something new, something that you gotta have. 3 months from now, people aren't going to be talking about row #1 unless it's truly a key issue. And see, that's what happens a lot is we get, and I haven't read it and I don't know, and I'm not sure the continuity. I just know it's about the last turtle, the last Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
So if it ends up being an actual key issue where there's a huge first appearance or a huge, event happens, or this thing that there is that makes it then collectible from here until eternity, then you're not going to get it cheaper. But if it's just a cool variant or a cool comic or a cool idea, it's more than likely going to cool off at some point in time, even a little bit, even if it does, maintain some of its value. But I've seen just a ton of cases where you just wait 2 weeks, dude, and you can buy it for a few bucks less. Now, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Patience is huge in any kind of collecting game, I find myself having to remind myself for that too. It's like, because a lot of times for my inventory, it's like I'm looking to acquire, raw inventory to turn into graded inventory to maximize, an ROI on that. And it's like, there's some books, like, especially if I got people asking me for it, hey, do you got one of these? Do you got one of these? It's really tempting to like overpay for a high grade raw copy, knowing that I can probably turn it into a 9.8 graded copy and still make some money and still fulfill my mission of helping comic book collectors collect the comics they love. And those kind of, you have to be a little more strategic, but in terms of just collecting, if you don't need to have it today, give it a shot next week.
Right.
Give it a shot next month.
And that, I'm really glad you brought that strategy, like that strategy of buying raw comics that you think is a good enough quality to grade a certain kind of way when you send it out, because that was something that I was going to kind of ask. As far as you, obviously a ton of your business is consignment, but then you also said that you don't really collect nowadays. There isn't anything that you really collect to keep, to build any strong positions on or anything like that. So I was just kind of curious, well, where's the arbitrage for you? Because everything you sell is graded, which, I think definitely grading, or at least consignment for graded products is a better way to go. Selling graded products is a better way to go, because that's like what you said before. It's a solid price point versus someone saying, hey, you didn't take a picture of this crease in the back, so $100 discount, thank you. Whatever someone might say in that situation. But I'm really glad you brought that up. So the arbitrage for you to keep the lights on for your comic shop is to buy raw and then get graded.
Yep. Or a lot of times I've managed to pick up some graded collections too. Again, it's one of the unintended consequences or unanticipated consequences of this business. And then again, just building connections with other comic collectors online, is that I've had people approach me and say, hey, I'm looking to sell these graded comic books. I know this is your thing. We've known each other for a while. I just wanted to offer them your way first. And it's like, sure. How much do you want for, and we put together, right. And it's like, because we have that relationship and they understand, and then they almost feel like they're a part of the shop, because they're like, I could probably sell these for this much on my own, but if they're going to you, I'll give them to you for this much. And I can get a really great price on collections.
That's really
so
nice.
I've managed to acquire a bunch of, already graded collections just from colleagues and whatnot. And that's another part of the biz too that I wasn't anticipating, is how I get the daily emails and DMs from collectors and novices and whatnot, either trying to figure out what they have or understanding that they have something and then looking to sell it. I never made like a dedicated sell me your comics page that you'll find on just about any other comic book shop's website. Like, we buy comics, we pay top dollar, we pay this, that, or the other. Don't have one of those on my website. I still get emails and direct messages.
Apparently you don't need to.
Every single day of people like, hey, will you, are you interested in these? So yeah, I managed to get a lot of great comics that way. But yeah, for the most part too, is like finding raw collections that have some keys in it. Or, one of my favorite things to do is to go on Instagram and share to my story, like a screenshot. It sounds like a real DB kind of move, but it's really not. But it's like, take a screenshot of your PayPal balance and be like, here's what's in the account. Sell me some stuff,
Right.
And
this
then people,
is my budget.
yeah, people will just start sending you stuff they have. It's a great way to like, A, get some cool stuff, and B, hook up a fellow comic-preneur, who's dealing just in raw keys or whatever it is. So there's all kinds of different ways to get stuff.
And I really like how you said comic-preneur, because you were the first person that I've heard use that term. To me, you've coined it. So if you actually have, like, awesome. In my world,
then that's all that matters to me. In your world, in my world, I thought I did too. So comic-preneur is just what I started calling myself and calling other people like me. We are entrepreneurs trying to find their way through this in the comic book biz to do something they love. In this case, it's comic books, so we're comicpreneurs. It's got the same kind of cadence as entrepreneur, a couple syllables, same kind of, alliteration and whatnot. Sounds good. So I'm like, I am so good. I just invented this amazing, amazing phrase to define exactly who I am and people like me are. Only to Google it and to find out, no, I was not.
Trademarked.
It's not trademarked. Believe it or not, it was actually used in reference to stand-up comedians. So stand-up comedians
that makes sense.
Are comicpreneurs, people who are trying to make a living off their humor. Mm-hmm. I like to think I took it over to the comic book side. I've never heard any stand-up comedians call themselves a comicpreneur.
Yeah, never.
I have heard other people in comic books call themselves a comicpreneur. So
yeah,
I'm gonna stick my flag in it. I'm taking it.
Hey, take it. I really love it because you're right. Everyone there's a huge pie. There is a huge pie, and everyone can get a little bit of piece of it. There's enough for everyone, and I mean, to make it a full-time thing where it's paying all your bills, obviously that's going to take a lot of work, a lot of really smart strategy, a lot of really good smart moves, and definitely an investment in capital. In the beginning, especially if you're trying to bootstrap, but I think the term is still there. That's a really great. In the beginning, you said bootstrap, and I thought it was a really great way to put it because it's exactly what you're doing. You got your own little startup. You got your own little comic startup.
Yep.
I like that. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not even going to suggest that I'm a smart business person because I do. It's like my podcast, Certified Comic Talk. It's not about things that are going to lead someone to buy a comic book from me. It's not a sales channel. It's just where I share insights and experiences about starting a comic book shop for other comicpreneurs who are going down the same journey that I'm going down. So it's not like my audience isn't somebody who's necessarily going to buy something from me. So I don't know if that's a smart business move or not, to teach people my tricks for free. I don't know if that's a smart business move or not. To give away my free ideas like reverse escape room. I don't know if that's a good business practice or not.
Aww.
But you know what? It makes me happy. And, I'm a firm believer in you always need to be learning something. And I'm also a firm believer, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know every single thing there is about the comic book business. I'm not pretending to be that guy. I'm not claiming to be that guy, but I'll tell you what, I will tell you how I got to here almost 4 years from where I started from. I know how I did that because I did it. Right. And I can share that with you, and I can tell you those things, and I can share my stories, and I can share my successes, and I can share my losses and the stupid boneheaded things I do. So hopefully you can avoid those same kind of things. So it's like, while on one hand, I've got the comic book thing that sells and makes money, I just can't help it. I'm just like an educator at heart, I think. When I went to college, I had goals of being a teacher. Didn't work out that way. So I just love sharing and connecting with people and teaching people things. And then obviously learning things, right? It's not just, I have to figure things out too. And a lot of times, especially in comic books, there's not a lot of people out there who are like, here's how you do this. Right. Here's how you get an account set up with this distributor. You just kind of have to figure it out. So that's where too, I managed to make a lot of connections with people who are like me, or just like, dude, you were the only one who's even talking about this stuff. I didn't know that at the time, but I know that now. It's not why I started. I was like, oh, here's a niche that's not exploited. No, it was just, this is just what I like to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I know there's at least one other Jason out there somewhere who's going to stumble across this and appreciate it. So.
No, I think I can really appreciate the transparency because I think it builds your brand and then builds your business, like the flywheel, it builds your business because they feel like they can trust you. They feel like they know you. So they feel like you can sell whatever they want to sell on consignment. And on top of that, you got the good deal. You got the good consignment fee deal. So like what you said, it's just the flywheel for that. So, I mean, like you said, you never know if sharing the secrets will bite you in the ass, right? You never know. But honestly, I think ideas are a dime a dozen. You know,
Yep.
it's all about the execution on that. But I mean, I don't know. I think personally it's really great because you like there's a guy, for example, his name is Rudy, and his channel on YouTube is called Alpha Investment, and he covers Magic the Gathering stuff. And I found him a few years ago. And what I really loved about him is because he is a Magic the Gathering guy. He's a TCG guy, but he's invested in other hobby collecting stuff that he occasionally talks about. But he originally was in the finance world, and then he left the finance world because it felt scummy to him. It felt terrible to him. So he used to have all those certificates, but then he just opened up an LGS. He opened up his own local gaming store, and he's been able to stay strong, through this time. So it's been great for him. I don't know how long he's been doing it, but at least, 5 years or something like that. So he introduced me to the idea that collectibles were even an asset. And I did not think about that at all, but it 100% fits the definition of an asset, something that appreciates in value over time. The stuff that we have, it appreciates in value over time. And then it also is really cool. So
Yes.
It's so cool. And so that guy is a really interesting guy because he just puts it all on the table. He's a really smart dude. He's very like I said, he just puts it all on the table, and he's been able to grow a huge following. He got to the point in his Patreon where he completely stopped taking new Patreon people because it was just too much. He couldn't handle it because in his Patreon tiers, it's he has benefits of where, since he has a shop and he has physical product, he can sell those to you, like booster boxes and collector items and things like that. You have access to those things. But then you have access to also just other knowledge that he may not share on YouTube because, reasons. So like those things can get people on board. And when you have your 1,000 people, however your 1,000 people actually turns out, I mean, I don't know. It'll just keep your business going. And I really like that about him. So and by the way, congratulations on being a DC distributor, because I heard that you can now get weekly comics. I mean, if you don't already have a Patreon, I don't think I've seen it anywhere, but if I'm wrong, tell me. But I think it'd be really interesting if you had provided special access. Or I don't know. I think because of everything that I think you could, if that's something that you were ever interested in the future, because you're a content creator and people trust you, access is a really great thing. And then on top of that, if you've got, your weekly distribution, you could do tiers of some sort, of deals of some sort. I don't know how you would make that work, but I don't know. I just think, I think you're better off sharing the secret sauce rather than not. Like I've seen those guys that they talk about how they press their books, but it's like a secret to how they do it.
Oh yeah.
And
Okay.
I mean, I get it, but like, bruh, I don't know. It just seems silly to me. Like I understand logically the reason, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's for comic book pressing well, just like in a lot of collectibles, there's certain aspects of it where it's very gatekeeperish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, I know how to do this thing, I'm making money off doing this thing, and I don't want anybody else to know how to do this thing. Well, the reality is there's hundreds upon thousands of people who can press comic books out there. You're not that special. The ones who I think are successful are the ones who actually have built more of a legitimate business around it and have built the relationships that go along with it. But in terms of some of the other stuff, so yeah, DC new comics, not for long, because that's not going to work out.
No, I'm so excited.
It was very exciting, and I did it because for a couple different reasons. I wanted to dabble in new comics. A, additional income stream, more regular income stream. Mm-hmm. B, if I ever do get to the point of the brick and mortar shop, I'm going to have to figure this stuff out anyway. So I can hit the ground running if I already have everything set up and can order and can do all these things and whatnot. So when DC, back when COVID first started, they dropped Diamond distribution, which was like this kind of big shock and awe thing, because Diamond had a complete legitimate monopoly for all comic book distribution. Mm-hmm. DC decided to stop using Diamond, and they propped up two online comic book shops to be distributors, but they gave them new names. So Lunar Distribution and UCS Distribution, which was Midtown Comics and another comic book shop, HCBS or something like that, based out of Indiana. So these two like traditional online comic book resellers are now going to be the wholesaler distributors as well. Whole nother story. Anyway, so just kind of on a whim, COVID, I'm like, I'm just going to sign up for one. Right?
Why not?
And with Diamond, I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's like, yeah, there's minimum orders and you never know how much shipping is going to be. And it's just really crazy. And it's like this big thing. And I'm like, well, that's why I was like, no, I'm never getting new comics. But then when, DC split off from Diamond and went with these two, I'm like, well, I'm at least going to start exploring this. And so I found out I was able to sign up with UCS, scan over all my paperwork, my resale certificate, my tax licenses, all this, that, the other. And within a couple of days, I was, a retailer of new DC books with a 35% discount, this, that, and other. And I was like, oh my God, I'm such a big deal now. Hooray. Man, that 35% discount is not enough.
It's not. It doesn't make...
It was. So for Jason, I should say, for the online seller. So if I was going to sell new comics on my website, I knew this already, but if I was going to do it, I would have to really invest a lot in the infrastructure of that website. I really kind of architecturally backed myself into a corner. And I'll tell it to you because you'll understand. And anybody else listening, if you understand, that's great. If you don't, then just this won't take long. So I build my site, right? It's built on WordPress. And instead of using the standard WooCommerce/shop subfolder, I wanted a direct name match. So it's certifiedcomic.shop/graded-comics. So that is my main subfolder off the root, which means everything I list now gets listed on the graded-comics subfolder. So I can't list raw, and this is probably nobody will notice because nobody looks at the URL, and Chrome and Safari do a great job at even hiding the URL, so you don't even know where you are. But the fact that it would be certifiedcomic.shop/graded-comics/Wonder Woman number 64, that's not graded. It's just that just drives me insane. So to go back and to fix that, and then to do all the 301 redirects, and then just the fear that I would lose my Google juice for doing that.
Oh man, yeah.
So I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to try this out. I'm going to do it on eBay. Well, there are some people out there who got to be either they're getting bigger discounts than the new guy on the block, which I suppose is possible, but can't be by too much. Right. But it's just this race to the bottom. It's like you got
selling for.
You got a $4.99 cover price comic that you paid $3.60 for, or whatever it is, or $3.12. But people then are selling that comic online for $2.99 on eBay. And then they're paying the eBay fees.
Yeah.
I'm like, so either they're selling a crap ton, which they probably are, right? These are people, you look at their legitimate shops and they've got like 54,000, positive feedbacks and whatnot. So they're clearly selling a lot. But for the new guy who's just trying to, you have to, in order to be competitive, if you want to sell this, you have to price at their price point.
Right.
You're eating those fees, and it's just, you can't make it up because you don't have the volume. But really that was like kind of the death knell, even though I hadn't ruled it out completely. But then DC just announced 2 weeks ago that they were actually going just down to one distributor now. Their UCS is going bye-bye, and it's just where I have my distribution set up with. It's just going to be from Lunar. Word on the street is that Lunar isn't as hip and with it and up to it as UCS is. And then it was actually found out, at least what's being reported, is that DC didn't ditch UCS. UCS said, we're out. We don't want to do this anymore.
Really?
So Lunar was kind of it. So that to me says, so Lunar wasn't like the better one that was outperforming UCS, who I had a great experience with. They have just a really slick back end, piece of cake ordering, piece of cake invoicing, piece of cake sign up. If they're saying they're out and Lunar is the one who's going to have to take the whole brunt of all those clients, it doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence. that is the final solution. So I think I learned enough about new comics at this point in time to know that, hey, if you're going to do it, you have to go all in. Because I was just like 3 issues of this and 4 issues of this, and just really trying to do this like really manicured order. Figuring I could sell all those things and make a couple bucks off it, maybe find something in there like a variant that could be graded and make a few bucks off that, and that kind of thing. And that was the other part of it too. When DC goes to Lunar, this starts at January 2021, when now they are putting in place minimum monthly orders, which I apologize for to the community. It's like, this is probably my fault. Like, this certified comic shop guys order like 10 comics a week. We have to deliver these things to him. Minimum orders for everybody. So now you got to spend $500 a month as your minimum. And for the regular comic shop, spend $125 a week, piece of cake. But for a guy like me, if I spend $125 a week on new comics, or geez, that would also cover the cost of grading for 6 comics too. Right. So that's really not where I need to be spending my money at this point in time.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems very high risk, very capital intensive, and even if there are some variants that are worth kind of like ordering in bulk and then grading, I feel like the grading in itself is a little bit of an investment depending on how many you get. And then I wonder even how reliable each week, those variants that are worth getting graded, how often they show up. So,
yeah. And what condition too. I mean, that's always going to be a thing. It's like when you're getting new comics, they're going to, do their best in handling and whatnot. Funny story. The very first order I placed with UCS, it shows up and there's a store exclusive variant of a Batman 92, was it?
Was that the comic that you sold for like $235 or something like that?
Yes. But it came, it was Jorge Jimenez exclusive store variant, punchline design cover. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta, what a great time to start selling comics. I checked on eBay and this thing's selling for $300. I'm like, what if this just paid for the first order all by itself? Hooray. And of course I was going to grade it because that's what I do. And then it's got this big old spine tick on it. I was like, oh, come on, man. But that's part of the game.
Right.
So I still sold it for a couple $100, but the funny shorter version of the story is that, and I listed it on eBay as 9.2 near mint minus. 9.2 near mint minus. In the title, it's in the description, it's in the attribute. And the pictures, I've got a Galaxy Note, so I got the S Pen, right? So I take a picture, I'm like circling it on the picture, I'm uploading that in there.
Miss this.
So I list it the same day I get it. It sells like an hour later because again, the FOMO is kicked in. Oh my God, there's a new, only one limited one per retailer, right? So that means there's a legit short run on this. There's only going to be a few hundred of these that are out there. And the guy gets it, and then same day it gets delivered, he's messaging me saying he wants to return it. And he wants to return it because he was really hoping it would be in 9.6 or 9.8 condition.
Yeah, except your listing was very transparent.
And I'm like, brother, why did you buy it? It's not. I told you up front it wasn't. But because I have this weird need to be a top rated seller on eBay, that means that I have to take no questions returns for up to 30 days after the sale. So I couldn't just say no. It was right there. I just had to take it back, which was fine. I ended up selling it again, not for as much, but again, I didn't have to pay for it originally, right? So it was all profit after fees and whatnot. So it was fine. It was just, again, that's the other part of it too, is you never know if you're putting like all your hopes on getting this 1 in 50 ratio variant where you have to order 50 of the regular copies to get that one variant. There's no guarantee that one variant is going to show up and be a 9.8 candidate. And if it's not a 9.8 candidate for a brand new book and it's a 9.6, you're just not getting, you're not getting your money back out of that.
Yeah, I've heard other comic collectors that don't really sell. They literally just collect. And they're really, really picky about modern comics that if it's like less than a 9.6 or a 9.8, they don't even look at it, which, I mean, I get it. I 100% get it. It's just hard to get it to that point, from the printing to the distributor to the retail, wherever that is. Like, I see comic books all the time that have spine ticks and they're just sitting there. I'm like, oh, that's so gross.
Yeah, but it's tough. It's tough, but it happens. It's just part of the game.
Part of the game. Yeah. Well, yeah. So doing all that stuff, I mean, just hearing you talk about the economics of it stresses me out a little bit. So I'm glad you're making the right decision on that, and hopefully in the future when things change a little bit, you can get back to that where it makes sense.
Yeah, it really needs to be a full-time. That needs to be a full-time thing. Mm-hmm. It's nothing you could do. Nothing that I could do while I'm still trying to do everything else, right? Mm-hmm. It just needs those hours, and those hours aren't there right now. So, nor is it worth trying to find those hours from a financial standpoint.
I agree. The ROI isn't very big there, but I totally understand finding the hours, because right now I'm trying to work on my content. Occasionally I find cool things that I can just go ahead and get rid of so that I can reinvest into something else. And then on top of that, I'm trying to build a React app that is pretty much a market watcher for eBay in the Pokemon world, because there isn't much of that. And a lot of it that I've seen right now is just more algorithms rather than charting sales.
Okay.
Like the tools that you had mentioned before, there aren't many of those right now for Pokemon from what I've seen. Or at least the people that have reached out to me and are really hardcore into the buying and the selling and the collecting and things like that, they don't use anything. Everything is very manual. They're going in to eBay, checking sold listings.
Yeah.
It's a lot of taxing work, and I think sometimes as well, the search for the eBay sold listing only goes back so far. So my thought is to make like a stock market watcher type of app, but just for Pokemon. And
that's awesome
to look at all those things.
Love it.
So obviously I know there's ROI in building the content and building the ecosystem, and I'm doing that to the best of my ability, but then also finding the time and juggling between the two, between the app, because I know that's something that'll be really, really helpful. And I know I can build a really, really great tier model where there's ROI for myself and then ROI for the customers and the users. So I understand the struggle.
Yeah.
Gosh, I understand it.
It's real. Do people still say that the struggle is real? I don't know.
Struggle
is it's real. It's real. I don't know if people say it. Anyway, a great app to check out. It's not similar, but just to give you an idea, it's like the Key Collector Comics app. Nick Colonese, who developed that, interviewed back him on my podcast around episode 4 or 5. Anyway, that's just a great app. It only tracks key comics, so it's not like this grand comic database that has every comic ever. No, it's just keys. Just keys, which is great. So when you're at the LCS and you're flipping through a long box worth of Defenders and Champions comics that you don't know anything about, you can just have the app right there with you, looking out for here's the 10 issues that you want to try to find. But he also provides like a lot of push notifications for like any kind of market news, like casting announcements for movies or stuff like that tend to spike the market, so you can be prepared. And so there's a free version of it, I guess the point I'm trying to make, and then there's a paid version of it where you get the extra notifications and whatnot. And it certainly sounds like that's something you could do with your app in terms of monetization. It's like maybe have some freebies, look up some basic prices and whatnot, look up a limited amount of selling history, whatever it is, but then unlock alerts and notifications and these kind of things and whatever for the subscription price. And I've said this, and and I'm so glad to hear you're doing something like this, because I've always said, not always, because I just started saying this not that long ago, but I've always said anybody or any entity that can organize data and make it digestible for people who need it are going to be rich.
Me gusta.
I mean, because you got this data and all over this place. It's over here. It's over on eBay. It's over on you bring it all together in one place and you make it searchable and you organize it and you do things with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's at, man. You'll have customers out the wazoo. Especially now, I'm not a Pokemon guy. I'm not a Pokemon guy, Jessica. I don't know what a Squattle from a Charbroil. You know, did I get that right? Squattle and
You're close. It's Squirtle and Charmander. Is that what you meant?
I don't know. I meant who? Bless
Pikachu?
you. I'm sorry. You got allergic to something?
No, Pikachu. You don't know. I just got your joke.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I know Pikachu. That's all I know. And Raichu.
You have little kids, and I'm sure
my kids, bless their hearts, they got into Pokemon for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I bought them a Pokemon book. We played Pokemon Go. They spent a lot of money for Pokemon balls.
Aww,
and then they were over it.
What?
Yeah. I was actually kind of disappointed. I was actually looking forward to getting into it. The actual game itself, having never played it. It's like, for my age, I was a little bit too old when that first came out, I think.
Yeah. I gotcha.
I was more into like, let's play Dungeons and Dragons, man. I don't get these card-based games. Let's just go play some D&D, son. Good old.
Oh, I didn't know you
Let's go kill ourselves some orcs.
Let's go on an adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Get that. Oh, that's so funny. I had no idea you did D&D, but you know.
Oh yeah.
True to it.
They don't come much nerdier than me with my upbringing, to be honest.
I'm just surprised you didn't do Magic. You didn't do Magic?
No, again, I was a little too old for that, I think.
Really?
When Magic was coming out, wasn't that really started to hit in like what, the late 80s, early 90s?
It was like 94, 95. So you were in college, right?
Yeah. So in college, I was back into comic books in college, and that's all I had money for. And I think it just seemed confusing. But yeah, Magic. I mean, hey, if you like D&D, why wouldn't you like Magic? It seems.
Well, see, that's why I was confused. I was surprised. I was like, oh, gosh, and those worlds intersect.
Yeah,
especially in the beginning.
For sure.
Yeah, but
no, I was just more a pen and paper role playing kind of guy. No fancy cards. Just roll some dice.
Man, now can you imagine playing with a card that's worth like $1,000? You just have it in your deck, and it's just working. You just
see, that's
you have money right there. That's
I can understand. See, this is what's hilarious about fandoms and geekdoms. I can understand. I don't have a handy one here. A comic book being worth $2,000 because it's signed by this person, or it's this old, or it's this key, or there's only so many of them in CGC census, right? I get that. But when I see something like, hey, this Pokemon card is going for $3 over on the electronic man, I'm like, what the fuck?
You're like,
are you even
what?
talking about?
Yeah, I understand it because there's a level of functionality to the comic book. You can enjoy the read.
Right. And with the Pokemon, or the Magic, are you supposed to play them? Are you supposed to put them into your deck, or are they slabbed and it's like you just look at them? You never get to actually use them.
So I'm gonna blow your mind.
Yeah.
I've never played Pokemon. I've played Magic the Gathering once. I'm not like my collection is pretty decent. I'm not like a Pokemillionaire, multi-millionaire. I'm not, but I just love to look at them. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's because I grew up playing the games on the Game Boy Color, and I never really watched the TV show, in all honesty. But even from the beginning, they were worth crazy. Like the Charizard from the base set, $50. What? Why is a piece of cardboard worth $50? Back in the day in the 90s and in the early 2000s, when I was in middle school. I don't know. I literally cannot explain it. I just love how it looks, and I just love having it. I just love collecting it. There are a lot of people that consider it art. I don't really think of it that way as art, because it's not like, I don't know. I just don't I don't know. I don't think of it as a painting, though they're really cool to look at. 100% really cool to look at. I don't know. I maybe it's the clout. I don't really have anything that's even really super clout worthy, but I don't know. I just you know what I love? So back here, hold up. 'Cause the camera. This is a stack of PSA cards. I love having stacks of slabs.
Yeah.
And so that's why comics was really
very satisfying.
Yeah, it was so easy to get into comics. So I'm like, I've got slabs. This is great. I can stack them up. I can, compare. I don't have that many. I have like 2.
And one of them you got for me, assuming you haven't sold it.
No, I haven't done anything. The one from Bonafide, which was the Miss Marvel,
Yeah.
Kamala Khan, and then Captain Marvel right here.
Captain
Oh,
Marvel
you
signed.
can't see. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, I was really sad a few weeks ago because I was looking for this guy. I'm like, oh, maybe that guy's on his website, and it was already sold out. I was like, dang, you had like two graded ones.
Yeah, I've had a few of those roll through. They sell really fast. I love me some Star Wars, obviously, so I always try to keep my books. What do I have here? Got a bunch of Star Wars comics that I'm just getting ready to get listed. Got these action figure variants, TIE Fighter.
What? That's cool.
Yeah, there's like hundreds of these action figure variants by John. What's his name? John Tyler Christopher is the artist who does those. What else do we got here? Yeah, this is another one, action figure variant.
That is so cool.
With the collector's case. We've got, this is actually pretty cool. This is Darth Maul number 1.
Yes.
2017. This is the Aspen Comics variant. Now, again, this had a print run of 3,000, and there's only 91 9.8s in the CGC census. But what's really cool about this is that this is cover art by Michael Turner, who is a fan favorite, who unfortunately passed away in 2008. But this is actually was released in 2017. So this is actually the original sketch of Darth Maul here. He did at a San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, that's so cool.
That they managed to get a hold of, that they then turned into, like, nearly a decade after he passed away, into an exclusive Michael Turner cover.
How much does something like that go for?
It should go for, after that story I just told you, it should go for a lot more. This right here is a $65 comic.
Shut up.
Yeah,
I want it. I want it right now.
Well,
I want it.
I literally, the reason why it's sitting right here, because I just listed it on my website in Lando number 1. I know I got a lot of glare here. Just had a bunch of Star Wars consignments come in, so I'm working through.
Well, that's really fun. That's really fun. I'm gonna have to keep an eye out on that Darth.
Handling other people's comics.
The other day I saw the first appearance of Revan. Which is obviously like super, super old, and I FOMO so much. I didn't buy it because it was definitely over my price point. But it's just so fun. It's just so nice to have. What I've been trying to do is I've been trying to collect. So for me, like obviously that's a key. I guess I would say that's of course a special key for me because I played KOTOR, SWTOR. I love those games. But I also really, really love the comic books from the Clone Wars. That was done by Dave Filoni. I really I've always super loved this show, and so I'm trying to get a whole bunch of those, and those are actually a lot more expensive than I thought. Definitely in the hundreds for a few of those key issues. I mean, Ahsoka has always been my very, very favorite Star Wars character, other than Princess Leia. I guess Princess Leia was always my favorite, and then Ahsoka came around. I'm like, oh man, they're just like neck and neck right there. My favorite Star Wars character. So I've got to get Ahsoka's first appearance, which I haven't gotten yet.
Yeah.
I can't remember how much that one's going for right now, but I think I definitely want to get that one graded. Yeah.
And that's another one that's being affected by the visual medium. With Ahsoka expected to show up here in The Mandalorian.
That's right.
That always creates a spike in the markets. So again, you gotta be careful on that stuff. But the price on that has gone up big time.
I've completely forgot about that. I haven't been watching season 2. Yeah, I haven't been watching season 2. I'm sure Ahsoka will. Oh, I don't want to say the things I'm going to say because I feel like you might get sad. I thought season 1 was kind of boring, so that's why I haven't started season 2.
I could no. So I'm going to be on another podcast here this week. Just a little podcast is the name of it, with my man Cookie, and we're going to be breaking down episode 2 of The Mandalorian for funsies. But I could see your points. It has a methodical pacing to it. It's not your zip around the galaxy romp.
It's really different.
It's like that on purpose, right? It's a little slow, gives you time to breathe, gives you time to explore. But if you're used to your Star Wars being, zipping through hyperspace, pod racing through Tatooine, and all those things, then this might feel a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's good.
I mean, I definitely didn't dislike it. I will say that, because there was a lot of really, really, really great moments when the Mandalorian and the child are interacting. Like, all of those interactions are great and hilarious. And I mean, of course, I want to know, how the story, the backstory of the child. Like, I of course want to know that. I really wish there was a little bit more I got with some of the character arcs. Like, I wish I got a little bit more there. But what I do appreciate, that it did seem more character driven than a lot of the Star Wars media that we've been seeing lately, which, I don't know. People call me a boomer specifically because I'm just a super fan of the original trilogy. I haven't even seen the full latest trilogy just because I just couldn't do it. But I mean, if anyone who liked it, like, that's fine. I'm not judging you if you liked it. I just personally did not. So, and I have my reasons. Like, I don't know, but then I get called a boomer because I liked the originals. I love the originals. I
like the originals best too. Oh wait, well, I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer. But anyway, let's not go down that road. But to your point, no, and everything doesn't have to be, this binary world that we seem to have found ourselves in, where you either have to love it with all your heart or hate it with all the hatred you can muster. And you just not be into something that should be cool, right? I really wanted to like the new Star Wars movies when they came out so bad.
Me too.
And I love Rogue One, which really makes a lot of people go like, you love Rogue One? I'm like, I love Rogue One. Rogue One is the shit as far as I'm concerned, because that is like the chapter before A New Hope, which is my favorite Star Wars movie, right?
That's a good one.
It like leads right into it. So it's like, for me, it's like I get to see more of the very first Star Wars movie I ever saw 40 years later. So that's my favorite because it ties right into it.
I mean, they did take that one little line, and then turned a whole, 2.5 hours? I don't know how many.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And one a mutual acquaintance of ours, he walked out of that movie after 15 minutes at the movie theater. And I just never understood how you could, you just paid a pretty, nominal sum between the ticket and some snacks, maybe something to drink, and then leave.
Just walk out. Just go to another movie.
I don't know. I think he was just trying to show off. I think he went in not wanting to like it and was just like, I'm going to show Jason. I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to leave after 15 minutes.
Oh man. Well, the one thing that I love character-driven plots, which Rogue One is not. But that doesn't mean it's terrible. That doesn't mean it's not bad. I think once, like, halfway through, where all the action really starts, it's a really exciting film. Don't get me wrong. The one thing I specifically didn't like, and I don't think I have the words to articulate it because I'm not that, like, I don't review media
I really
like that.
Didn't like that stupid part where she said something stupid.
I actually didn't really like how they took Saul's character, because Saul, I first saw him in Star Wars Rebels. Like, I watched all the cartoons.
Right.
Yeah, I watched Star Wars Rebels, and so there were some similarities, but I don't know what it was about his character. And maybe, obviously there was some time between Star Wars Rebel Saul and, Rogue One Saul, so he's going to have some growth of characterness in between. So I don't know how reasonable I didn't really recognize the character.
But it goes back to, and I never watched any of the Clone Wars cartoons, but he goes back to the Clone Wars is where he originates from. And
Clone Wars. I was saying Rebels. You're right.
Well, he was also in Rebels. So you're supposed to see this growing radicalism in Saw you could see the seeds of it apparently in Clone Wars. Again, I never saw those episodes. And then you see it more in the one or two episodes of Rebels he shows up in. And so that then by the time you get to Rogue One, not that most people would only be meeting him for the first time in Rogue One, since not everyone watches the cartoons. He's like a completely different thing. Now, that movie had problems. It went through complete drastic reshoots with a totally different director. It had script rewrites, it had everything. And I can see its flaws, but I love it. Because they all die. That shouldn't be spoilers by this point in time. Mm-hmm. Because that's really where I was with that. I'm like, this is owned by Disney. in theory, everybody who's a part of this team should die.
Right.
Because
100%.
That's what the canon tells
All of
us.
it. Yeah.
But this is Disney.
Are they going to do something different?
Are they going to leave a clever little out for Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor to survive this thing? And then they can just say they escaped. Everyone else died except for these two. They escaped on a shuttle. They realized how lucky they were. They got married. They had kids, and they lived happily ever after in a galaxy far, far. I thought that this they were going to do. So when they croaked with everybody else,
you like that?
You did it. You did it. Disney, you did it. You killed them all. Now, look, Disney likes to kill people, right? Frozen, Tangled, you all name it. Movies. You can't watch a Disney or a Pixar movie without somebody dying right up front. That's just how they get you in there. So, but still, to kill them all,
yeah,
wasn't expecting that. I was glad they did.
I
was glad they all died. That was why I liked Rogue One so much, because they all died.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate you saying that. Yes, there are obvious flaws, and to some extent they're objective, and to other extents they're subjective, but that you still enjoyed the film. That's how I feel. I know you haven't seen the show. That's how I feel about Legend of Korra, though there's a lot of people that really shit on that show, and there are legitimate reasons to shit on that show, but I still watch it. I still rewatch it, and I still like it. Maybe it's because I like the idea of what it could be. I like the idea of it. The execution was kind of but I still like the idea behind the characters, so I definitely get it. And I'm that person too where I don't like plot armor. I just don't like it. That's why I had such big issues with season 8 of Game of Thrones, just because the storytelling, I mean, for the past few seasons it had been kind of shifting its style of storytelling a little bit at a time, and then season 8 comes and it's very drastically different. But for reasons, all the reasons that are some legitimate for sure, but yeah, if a character is gonna die, I don't know, I really loved Game of Thrones because of the fact that everyone had the chance of dying, and that was a little bit of realism within the fantasy, which, I mean, I know Star Wars is science fantasy, and not sci-fi, like the Star Trek versus the Star Wars.
Geez.
I don't know the terms. I don't know the terms, but yeah. Anyways.
Well, no. So what I was going to say, also never seen a single second of Game of Thrones. So just putting that out there.
Oh, okay. Fair.
Couldn't tell you anything about that either. But what I will say is what's great about whether it's the movies or TV shows or comic books or cards or whatever it is, it's not necessarily how good that thing is, or if it's critically acclaimed. Growing up, whenever I would hear that something was critically acclaimed, like a movie, I was like, well, that's not one I want to watch, because critically acclaimed means it's boring. I don't want critically acclaimed, right? So I just want something that that I have an emotional connection with. And so it can be the stupidest thing. It could be Police Academy 3. I love Police Academy 3 because for my own reasons, right? The same thing. I love Star Wars, and I love Rogue One because it tapped in to not just the nostalgia for Star Wars like The Force Awakens did. You're like, oh, this mirrors like a Star Wars movie. It feels like a Star Wars movie. Rogue One was beyond that. It's like that movie that you grew up, that you saw at the movie theater when you were 5 years old, right? When you saw that Death Star fly across the screen, like the scene in this thing. And now here's this other movie 40 years later that tells you why that Death Star was flying across the screen, chasing that ship, how you got to that point. That's this direct correlation to those feelings, to that emotion. So yeah, it could have been a big giant turd on a piece of toast, and I would be sitting here and be like, that was the best damn turd on a piece of toast I ever had. Just so good.
And the scene 1 or 2 before that where you see Darth Vader, that was a very good scene. That was a very good scene.
And anything, if you think about something too much, you're just going to ruin it for yourself. True. And so I used to be big, during the prequel area of Star Wars. I was on the boards. I was that annoying forum guy who would just argue with people. Before there was Reddit, there was the Force.net, which was specifically forums for Star Wars. And you're just fighting with people on the internet, which is never a good idea. But I was younger.
The prequels are amazing. Did I trigger anyone?
We've gone so long now. I was going somewhere with that, and I just totally sidetracked.
Sorry if that was my fault.
No, it's not your fault. It's my own fault. It's like we've been chatting for 2 hours now,
Oh man,
and it doesn't feel like it.
No, not at all.
Oh my God, I was going to say something so astute. I'm sure.
I was going to say, by the way, I can give you an out. We have been on for 2 hours, and I scheduled this for 1 hour and 30. So I totally want to be respectful of your time.
Oh my God, I'm having a blast. I don't get to talk to grown-up people about these things that I like very often for an extended period of time. So I'm just super happy that you asked me to come on the show, and you've really shared 75% of the mic time with me, which I super appreciate. I must return the favor. You can come onto my podcast, and you can talk about starting a nerd-based business, about cards and things and other stuff that there is, and building apps, and we can have a good old time. And then I will dedicate 75% of my mic time to you.
Oh, well, thank you. It would be so much fun. And honestly, that's what I really, really love about just the content creation in general, because when I was a kid, I was ashamed to be into Pokemon or to be into Star Wars. And as an adult and the things that I like, I still feel like I'm not mature for my age because I still like these things. But then I see other people and I connect with other people that aren't immediately around me that just can talk and have the conversations with me. So I'm totally with you on that.
Well, nice. I've got good news from your future, is that childlike feeling of wonder and amazement will never go away.
Oh, well, okay, that's
my
good.
age one day, and you'll be like, am I really almost 50? Because I sure as hell don't feel like I'm 50. Sure as hell don't act like I'm 50. No, and the things I have around me make me feel like this.
I just think it's funny that, I'm my age and I have this whole wall behind me, and this wasn't a, for the content. This was because I wanted to, and I'm like, I have all this stuff. Like, this isn't even half of the stuff that I could probably put up and display. And I wish I was zoomed out so I could show you everything, because it's just cool. But yeah,
that'd be awesome.
I feel weird sometimes when other people's thoughts get into my head, like, oh, that's weird, why would you have these things? But honestly, it's so cool. I love it. I don't know, I don't know. Part of me cares, the other part of me is just gonna continue to do it because it's awesome.
No, it's great. What do I say? Let your geek flag fly. Just who cares?
So then, are we nerdypreneurs?
We could be. We could be nerdypreneurs.
Yeah, because you got the action figures. Do you have Hot Wheels?
My son does, but they're toys that he plays with. So at that point, they're just toys.
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
But Mr. Snake Eyes here, he doesn't get to open and play with Snake Eyes. That's just a no-no.
How much are those worth? Like
these are the 25th anniversary. So these came out in that would have been 98. It's like a $50 action figure right here.
Okay.
Still kind of cool. I really do. Sometimes I'm tempted to open it. So I get all these ideas for videos for my YouTube channel that I don't upload videos to anymore because I don't have that kind of time. I'm like, it would be fun just to open Min on card toys and play with them. And I'm sure that would just like freak a lot of people out.
Gosh, every time I
here's a Snake Eyes. Let's rip it open and play with it.
Seriously, I think you would get a ton of views for that because those booster boxes that open for Pokemon that they sell for like 200,000, 375,000. There's gonna be a point where there's only like one left. That's unopened, that's still sealed, original factory seal. So as cool as it is, it makes me very anxious. I don't have any of those booster boxes, like those original vintage ones. I don't have those because those are definitely a little bit out of my price range. But I mean, of course, if I was someone who was collecting for the long term, like every time that's, that your pocketbook gets bigger every time one gets opened. But that would be cool though. Back to the point of unboxing those things, I bet you could get a lot of views.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want to tell you no. But
I'm not going to. I want to. But it's like, I feel like in order to grow a YouTube channel, you have to do something that's a little bit, and I don't know if it's true or not. I just feel like you have to do something that's a little bit out there, that's a little bit different. And so by like taking things that you wouldn't normally do, we'll get you subscribers, and then you get enough subscribers where you can finally start monetizing your channel. And then, theoretically, you're monetizing your channel where you can now afford to buy more of these things, where you create more content, wacky content of like, I set this, 1977 Luke Skywalker action figure on fire, because I could.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can definitely understand that. It's been a really interesting journey for me in terms of content creation, because if you try to keep up with the Joneses and try to, you can go real quick if what you're trying to do is show like even if you just stuck to Instagram and you want to take the coolest pictures of the coolest cards, it's still going to cost you thousands. If you want to get the coolest Charizards, just the coolest, most, I mean, those are going to get the most likes, those are going to be the things that people want to see. So you can easily overextend yourself if you want to keep up with the Joneses like that. So you got to find ways to just be more creative, which I think there are a lot of people that do a really good job with that don't necessarily have those collections, but still have really cool, engaging, following and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like if you had like an unboxing channel where it was just like unbox the rarest things, you got to get the rarest things. How much are those rarest things? You got to get 10,000 subscribers before the channel starts making you any money, so. Right. And what's really interesting about that, just as an aside, I've been, since I've been doing the podcasting, I've been trying to understand more and more of the business side of podcasting and getting people's perspective on podcasting versus YouTube. And a lot of those folks have said that they started out YouTube first and then they created a podcast. And what was crazy to them, that was kind of shocking to them, is they were able to grow their podcast really fast and monetize a lot more quickly than YouTube, which is really interesting. YouTube, I can understand why you don't do it, because it's hard. It takes a long time to put out that content. What I'm trying to do is incorporate that into my workflow, because I feel like I could grow my podcast if I can just chop it up. But that's just hard in itself. Oh God, it's so tedious, and I'm trying my best. But so all of that to be said, it's really great to have a podcast because, well, I'm riding the Pokemon wave with all that. So that's been really nice and really cool. And I think B, it's a lot easier too, because it's just your voice versus worrying about, the visual part of it that comes with all the editing and da-da-da-da. I don't know. I'm not an editor. Just learn how to kind of do it and then go with it. But editing's not fun. No, not at all. I've tried to hire people on Fiverr to do those things, and it's really expensive. It can get to be really expensive for each episode, and I'm just like, I just got to figure it out. I just got to sit down and figure it out. Yeah, Fiverr to me, oh my God, it's like when you go to the dollar store only to find out that everything's not $1, and it kind of like rocks your world. It's like, wait a second, I thought we were at the dollar store. Everything's not $1. It's like when you go to Fiverr, it's like, what do you mean that's $300? I thought everything was $5. Yeah. No, not anymore. And I mean, you can find some really great talent on there. Like when it comes to doing design things, I'm trying to redesign a logo right now for not a bad price. But no, I understand. It's interesting, and especially if you're not really fully monetizing like myself. Like this is all just completely out of pocket, and it's been fun. It'll be totally worth it whether it works out or not. Like the experience was. Oh yeah, you can't beat that. I mean, it really is. It's like, yes, monetization is the goal. But in order to get monetization, you have to be consistent. And that's like my biggest thing. It's like my podcast episodes are once every couple months these days. Again, it's this weird thing. When I first started the shop, like I said, like 2 hours ago, I was just creating content because I didn't have much to sell. I was waiting for things to be graded, so I would just create content. The consequence of that was the content started driving traffic started driving sales, blah, blah, blah. The more sales I have, the less time I have to create content. Right. And now it wasn't just writing blogs. It was, I want to have my podcast and I want to have my YouTube channel. And I'm trying to write, record, video. All the things. And then it's like, I can't
and being a blog, again, I'm an old school blogger going from way back in the day. That's just kind of, as much as I love to podcast, as much as I love being on camera, blogging is still kind of like my comfort zone in terms of just being able to sit down and write about stuff. So that's just like, if I can only do one of those three things, that's probably what I'm going to default to is just cranking out some content, because I know that will drive traffic to the site. You know,
and that'll build your business.
Again, as big as YouTube is it, you know, I can't put out weekly content. I can't put out weekly audio content. How the hell am I going to put out weekly video content?
Oh, 100%. I'm definitely with you on that. And what I'm trying to do is take the approach of what people do in the music industry. So what's kind of funny, this is going to be like, this is a totally weird way to take this conversation, but I kind of see podcasters as independent music artists, because we own publishing, we own all the things. You know, honestly, I don't really know the words. We own our work. We own our stuff. And so with that said, what I'm trying to do is kind of take some of those, find what nuggets I can take from that industry and apply that to podcasting.
Interesting.
And one thing that they do is, well, some artists will crank out, you know, however many songs a week, a month, a year, however many that is. And they might keep it at a consistent basis. And then some will release a song and work it for 2 to 6 months, try to get it on the radio, try to get it, you know, just market the song, right? And then they'll have another song to release after that, once they've fully marketed that song, and then they'll market that one again. And so what I want to kind of do is take that concept, but obviously make the time frame a lot smaller, and so that I can have content in the back end that I can release consistently, but fully work a podcast, right? So that's why I'm trying to move content over to YouTube, over to really weird places like Twitch, and hopefully, like, you know, move some things to IGTV, you know, all those things to just kind of grow everything together. And like what we talked about, building an ecosystem where those things feed each other, and then just continue to grow organically, which is obviously easier said.
It sounds so simple.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, that's very straightforward. That's a solid strategy. It's just hard.
You just need to do all of the things, just like you said. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, when you start in the beginning, you're like, you know, I don't know. For me personally, at least, you end up biting more than you can chew. And you start to overextend yourself. You're like, okay, I'm going to add this platform, add this platform, add this platform. And I remember a long, long time ago, we talked about not overextending yourself. And sometimes you don't realize that you are until you try it, which is totally okay. Like, that's fine. Like, you learned. Yep. But, you know, but then you realize, like, you know, you just scale it back, try to do what you can, and focus on just doing one thing the whole way through, which is my struggle, doing one thing the whole way through, and really taking advantage of a platform, because I don't know, and then just expand from there if you can add more. But you know, yeah, it's a lot of things, but you know, I know, if you're willing to do a part 2, like I said, you know, I know it's really late for you. Or it's
getting really late for you. We go 2 hours and 15 minutes. There's more?
Well, you know what? I had all these cool questions that I wanted to ask you. And
I know, and I rambled way too much.
No, I love it because you know so much. And I think one question that I really wanted to get kind of your thoughts on, which is especially because of the fact that you come from a different industry that's been around for so long, just like baseball cards, I feel like there's things that one industry can teach another because of the age and how long it's been around. I mean, because people are going to be people, right? So maybe there's some minor differences, but I feel like there's things in the comic book world that will still apply to Pokemon, or still apply to Magic the Gathering, and so I was just, you know, and I don't know how much you know about those markets, so maybe asking you the question of what can a Pokemon investor learn from comic book investing? But I guess maybe we could take the question more general is, what can a hobby investor or a hobby collector learn from comic books specifically? Like, that's a big question.
Yeah, that is a big question. I think the spin on it I would take is that I feel personally it's super duper helpful if you are passionate about whatever that thing it is, whether it's comic books or Pokemon, Magic, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get into it if you just like, I hear comic books are worth flipping and investing and speculating on. I like that Iron Man movie. I'm going to do this. Can you do that? You can, right? Or could you get those dollar signs in your eyes when you see some of the prices that some of these Pokemon cards are going for, and be like, I had one of those, or I have one of those, or I think I have one of those, and just want to get into. Yeah, I suppose you could, but it's your passion that's going to drive it forward for the thing that you're doing. So that way it never feels like work. Like I said, I've been doing this with 4 kids, a wife, a full-time job for almost 4 years, nights, early mornings, and weekends. And is it hard? Yes. Is it a lot of work? Yes. But I'm telling you, I haven't gotten to the point where I'm just like, I need a break. It's just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Next thing.
Not every night is a great night, as productive as it can be, because maybe it was a hard day. Maybe the kids were a little nutty, and it's like, I just don't want to do that. But at the same time, it's like it's this thing that you can get into and you can just do. And it also helps too that my wife, we mentioned it earlier, she is a quilterpreneur. That doesn't sound as right. Anyway, so she has her own thing as well. So we can connect still during the day, after work. And then once the kids are in bed, we're both totally comfortable, hug and a kiss. See you later. Where she goes and works on her business, I go and work on my business. I think I'd feel a lot different if she wasn't doing that. The amount of time that I put into this, if she wasn't putting in equal time, actually sometimes even more time than what I put into mine. With hers, if she was just like sitting out in the living room, watching Real Housewives of Oakland County or whatever it is, I'd probably feel bad putting on this much time. But knowing that we're both, and honestly, we're both doing these things for our family, right?
Right.
To make sure that our family has the best life possible and it can experience as many of the wonderful things that are out there to experience, So that's why we constantly bust our ass. And you can do that when you love the thing that you're doing. Like if you're just trying to, it's just my opinion, but if you're just trying to get into to chase an angle or to tackle a niche, it's like I see this a lot in like the SEO world, right? Where it's like, yeah, I'm looking for a hot niche that I can monetize with my AdSense. They're like this thing you know nothing about, that you have no passion about, but you just want to monetize your blog. It's like it's never going to work, or you're just going to sell yourself short if you don't care about that thing in a deeply and emotional way that you're trying to turn into some kind of profit center. Maybe I'm just a rainbows and puppy dog kisses kind of guy, but that's just what I believe in, man. Love what you do, and they will love you back.
Yeah. You bring up a lot of really good points about that. And I've seen those people, actually, those SEO people that will decide they want to build a website for dentists in Naperville and then, sell the listings and build which is great. It's fine. It's totally cool if you want to go ahead and do that. Totally fine. No judgment whatsoever. But I like how you put it, chasing the angles, because I do see that a lot. And we've obviously seen a lot of that in comic books. We see it a lot more, especially within Pokemon, and it's not really even been a boom. It's been just like a gradual growth in Pokemon. But once it became more popular because celebrities were kind of like buying up really, really nice, cool stuff, it seemed like a boom to a lot of people that hadn't really been doing it, or just completely new to it. So definitely a chasing angles kind of thing. For a lot of folks out there. And that's fine. If that's what you're gonna do, is chase the angle, that's fine. That's tough work to make it profitable. So if you put in the work, that do you. But I think personally it's much more enjoyable to think about it in the long term, because again, if you buy something that you freaking love, whether it works out or not, you still got something that's really cool. So
boom,
that makes it a lot less stressful. Yeah.
Yes.
100%. So, but
what are you going to do with all these leads for people looking for dentists?
I know.
You can't sell them to the dentist office. And you just, anyway.
It's a lot. I don't know. Go ahead and try it and do what you want to do. I guess.
Money's great. Money is important, but it's not. It doesn't make you happy. Okay, so it doesn't. So just do something you love that you love to do. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. If you love Pokemon cards and you want to try to side hustle your way into a few bucks, do it, man. But if you know, like if you're like Jason and you don't know a Bulba guy from a Chardude,
Bulba guy,
but you know that the one dude from 1994, pull you in some money, so you want to get in on that action, you're not going.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you. I'm with you 100% on that. I was just talking to some guys that do Pokemon, buying and selling full time, and it's really, really cool that they do that. Now they're putting in like 16 hours a day. It's a lot of work to do what they're doing to make a full-time income, but it's nice to at least hear their stories because it's possible. Like, oh shoot, this thing that I've loved ever since I was a kid, you can actually support yourself from it. That's fun. And so even if it doesn't work on a full-time basis, you still, what they say, if you shoot for the stars, you'll land on the moon.
You land in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Fort Wayne, Indiana. Isn't that where those really awesome donuts?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I just think it's a funny name.
Oh, okay.
It's just a funny place. Shoot for the moon and land in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
just the randomness, yeah.
No offense to the lovely people of Fort Wayne, Indiana, by the way.
Oh, yeah, but yeah, even if it's not like a full-time gig, you still aren't gonna regret the time that you spent into it. It might be a little annoying, like some days, like what you said, when you're not super productive. I'm a really, really type A person, so I feel like I've had a good day when I can check off a whole bunch of things.
Oh yeah, did the list.
When I'm not, I don't get like depressed about it, but I just get a little down on myself. But it is what it is. Like when you're, I don't know, I don't want to talk myself up, but anyways, yeah. So, yeah, but well, I guess what we could do now is I think that's a really good place to leave it off. I think that's a really good like ending message. So since you have got a lot of links, tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh my God, you can find me everywhere. But actually, the easiest place to find me is on my website, Certified Comic Shop. That's certifiedcomic.shop, certifiedcomic.shop. And if you go to the About page or the Contact page on there, you can find all my bona fides where to find me. But on Instagram is where I spend most of my time, on the social media at Certified Comic Shop. But I'm also on Twitter at Certified Comics. I got a Facebook page. Don't go there. It's a ghost town, but it's there. If you really love Facebook and feel like that's the only way you want to get to know Jason, you sure can. And if you ever want to talk comics, man, just hit me up. Email, that works too. Jason at certifiedcomic.shop, and you will find me. And if you're on the iTunes, Certified Comic Talk, the podcast for comicpreneurs. Boom.
Thank you. That's awesome.
One on YouTube. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wait.
Just come to my website. Find it all there.
That'll work. I'll put all your links in the show notes, so we'll have links for that in the SEO
I love
stuff.
It. Thank you
all
so
those
much.
Things. No, I appreciate you for coming on, and we'll definitely keep in touch for a part 2 on whomever's part 3, 4, 5. I don't know. I don't care. I can talk about all these nerdy things. So.
Yeah, I can do 2.5 hours on a Sunday evening anytime you like. But yes, next you must join me on Certified Comic Talk to talk about your stuff.
Yes, let's do it. Awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.